ngalo na la wato kuma ta bak asira linga da fo ko nyu founding kila
hey elafta maboro la bank kalpo efa igiso eseo na yuna jang ibadin kiyato kati yuna wallet ibe falindiro ke kan sandiri nyat
ni la yuna wallet o si muna fanno tulo jabo mano kandrin ani fen jama isi sanno la yuna wallet o ko yalla kamo soto ila wallet o kono
alkana la kondano tay kafi yuna wallet anatan tolle rukan na balwo fanondi abe sono yaren ko bulu podo ne la mobile scan yo science ise maboro ke wato men diate
ko be sandro ke fongole ba ko ba ke kan dimbalem isi ñu lonko e sandro se yona enterprise wato wati ani la yona wallet tola e be lan kamo soto kay la wallet o kono
alina nga kafun nanyi yuna dimbayal kan kasandiro ke yuna biti foto alina kata nyin ko kentat na sura fa lolu si sandiro kije se maboro fanan keje
moro jundiana nyum ko di mabal ni kadeda
Hello and welcome to another edition of our show. It's another Thursday and we're back in the studio here in Tranquil, and today with me I have Dr. Gajigo. Of course, Doctor is always on the platform, and my bitang Mustapha. Mustapha be pare barket. For it advertisement okela timai.
No.
Je? Timai nyum pare nyima bimbedi. Let advertisement okela. So you're not advertising for Tima?
No.
Okay. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Dr. Gajigo, today we're going to be talking on so many different issues. We will look at the cement saga. We will look at the current economic situation. We will look at the upcoming rainy season. You have extensively written about that. We will also look at the current political situation. But first, I want to start with what is happening right now, the Ibrahim Diba arrest. You know, it's what is trending, and I think it's important we talk about it. So Ibrahim was arrested when he arrived in the Gambia, I think last week. He was arrived at the airport. We were told, you know, the guy who brought his stuff from Dakar was intercepted at Karang, and you know, Ibrahim was subsequently arrested here at the Banjul International Airport. At night, we wrote about it because we got to know about it around 11 o'clock at night. You know, he was taken to the serious crime unit in Banjul. He was charged with sedition, uttering seditious utterances against the president. You know, he was bailed at night because the lawyers were very, very adamant that if he stayed a minute beyond the 72 hours, they were going to sue the IGP. I think I said we should all congratulate Bora because now the police are not keeping people beyond, even though the other guy, the Bakari Sane guy, was kept beyond 72 hours. But Ibrahim was released at night and he went home. We were told they were sending the file to the AG's chambers for review because especially when it comes to seditious utterances, the AG has to, they said it's called a fiat, giving authorization to try somebody on that section of the criminal code. Okay. So on Monday, I think yesterday, Tuesday, he went on to report. When they got there, they were told that they were going to take him to court. They have got approval prior they got approval on Tuesday to proceed with the case. So he was paraded in front of Justice Magistrate Krubali of the Banjul Magistrate, Principal Magistrate, Banjul Magistrate Court for seditious utterances. His lawyers, he's being represented by Bori Toure, Abdullah Fati, Aziz Bensouda, and Lamin S. Kamara, and Yakumba Jete. I think Bori Toure filed something to strike out the case because, you know, they were charging on the wrong criminal code. And that was set for ruling today. Now, today, the magistrate ruled that indeed Bori was right. Ibrahima was charged under the wrong criminal code. But instead of striking out the case, he requested for the prosecution to amend their charge sheet. I mean, what is the observation on the whole, you know, saga, arresting Ibrahima? Right. The charge itself is very interesting. Let me read it, because what is interesting in the charge is how how they said calling the president foolish. I think I want to be correct here, because to calling the president foolish, rude, and all of the stuff. You know, what Ibrahima said, if you say it in our language, in Mandinka, Mandinka kango aka dimile. But if you say it in English, it is so trivial that, you know, I don't know what, you know.
I don't think rude is part of it.
Rude is not part of it. Let me read. It's not rude.
I mean, they said rude, but I don't think if you said it in Mandinka, rude is
if you say it in Mandinka, rude is not part of it.
I don't think he
said
rude.
No, he didn't say it. I think basically what he said, clueless kind of, right? You know, that is it. But the thing is, you know, what they wrote in their, let me read what they wrote in their charges, what exactly the offense was. They said, the sedition intention, contrary to section 51, punishable under the section 52 of the Criminal Code of the Gambia. Ibrahima, sometime in the month of May 2024 in Banjul and diverse places in the Republic of the Gambia, recorded and published a WhatsApp audio stating that the president is greedy and knows nothing, immature, exercise rudeness and foolishness. A statement calculated to bring into hatred, contempt, or to excite disaffection against the person of the president and the government of the Republic. Therefore, he committed a crime. This is what they said Ibrahima did, and this is what happened. What is your own observation about the entire, charge and,
Yeah, and I mean, there are so many things wrong with it. I mean, the fact that at this stage that the government feels that this is something that is worth pursuing as a criminal case just shows their lack of priority. As we speak right now, one of the difficulties that, for instance, any tribunal has to face in prosecuting people that are adversely identified by TRRC is that something as basic and fundamental as, torture is not defined under our criminal code. So you can't really go and it's difficult to, in fact, try some of those people in our courts, because we haven't had a real reform of our criminal code or the criminal procedures. But you have to ask yourself, why was this Mr. Deva actually put in a position to say something of this nature? Because the president was engaging in certain things that were unbecoming as a leader. It was the president just a few days ago who started in this sort of talk. Instead of having a meeting in front of constituencies, instead of people, instead of talking about substantive issues of development, things of concern, you have this sort of talk, as we say in our local language, this Garwale talk. Yeah. Taunting your opponents, talking about, Bitiknar. I mean, we've all heard all of those things. Yeah. Now, is this the sort of behavior that is expected of is this a statement-like behavior? Given the problems we have in the country, are these the sort of things that the president should be talking about in the first place to get to the point where you provoke supporters of opposition? And even if you provoke them, if you are again serious and intent on ruling the country, that sort of response is not something that should even take a minute of your time. But to make matters worse, you basically these sort of vague laws are usually things that are used by, in autocracies or dictatorships, not democracies, to basically persecute, not prosecute, but to persecute their political opponents. And this is just to basically strike some sort of a fear in people who might want to criticize him. Because if the president, let's say, you believe that the president has grabbed land, has taken properties, has received goods he's not supposed to do, you know, that could fall under something like, you know, as an accurate description of greedy behavior. Now, if opposition leaders or critics of the president have to be worried about you uttering the word like greed to accurately describe objectively things he has done, that's basically he's trying to create some sort of a shield against criticisms. So in terms of prioritization, in terms of what is, you know, what you would expect for statesman-like behavior for the leader of a state.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, the president's behavior is as if whether or anytime he's speaking for the public, he forgets that he's the president. He seems to talk as if he's solely and purely a political leader, where he just has to taunt his political opponents. So when you have those sort of lack of prioritization of what is important, infringing on people's right to expression, to criticize what they believe is an accurate description of what is being done wrong. I mean, it is just, you know, it's just completely, you know, it's wrong, and it's very concerning for all of us. So it doesn't matter if you are a UDP supporter, if you are a UDP official or militant or not. This is an issue that should concern all of us, and I really hope that some of the other political parties will all come out and there will be a joint statement, even not a joint one, but at least individual statement condemning this behavior, because if it can be done against UDP, it can be done against GDC supporter, DOI supporter, or any other political parties, or anyone who in fact not affiliated with any other party. So we should be really concerned about this, and I think it's a very, very, very worrying trend. And if I may add one thing, a few weeks ago we had a whole discussion about national dialogue.
Yes.
Yes, and as I wrote about this, I knew then that it wasn't meant seriously by the government.
You said that here on the platform.
It wasn't meant seriously. It was just a facade. And everything they did from that time period to now, you know, is demonstrating the fact that they didn't mean anything serious about national dialogue. And as we have seen, this is something they've forgotten about. They have forgotten about completely. So that's my position on this. I think it's something we need to worry about. It shows that this government is really not committed to democracy.
Now, Mustapha, you know, the fact of the question now, some of us are asking, you know, when it comes to today's ruling, the magistrate saying they're charging Ibrahim on the wrong criminal court. Now, this is a whole police prosecution team. They have experts, they have lawyers there, trained lawyers, professionals. Now, they also seek approval from the AG's chambers, and still they could not get it right. What does that say? Like, for me, that is really serious. We have seen what happens with the lawsuit that UDP, and I said, I am applauding, I will come to that. It's important that we test our system, we test our, you know, to fix our laws. If you cannot fix it by getting elected, fix it by challenging, you know.
Or getting them implemented.
Implemented. So this is very important. We'll come to that. But the fact that the police could not get it right, the AG's chambers could not also get it right. What does that say, Mustapha? Is it because, why do you think that happened though?
Let me just also first just speak about what Ibrahim said.
Yes.
So in terms of understanding, Ibrahim, because I disagree with what Ibrahim did. I thought it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time when you sit down to record an audio and just...
it's because you are not a politician. You and I, we don't record this because we are not politicians.
Yes,
they have masses. And
even for politicians, conversations should be productive.
Yes, it should be.
Now, but that's the ideal situation. Now, what Ibrahim did was a reaction to what Darboe did. The president did.
Yes.
You know, the president, Ibrahim has been with Hussein from day one.
He said that's his father.
Yes, he considers it a father. And what Darboe said in Mandinka, if you said somebody, that okay, in English that would sound like dementia. But in Mandinka, that's an insult.
It is,
And if you say it within that, so if the president goes about insulting people's parents, they will insult back.
Yes.
So then who crossed the line? It's the president who crossed the line.
Yeah.
And then anything that anybody says is merely a reaction to what the president said. Should they have done so? I don't think so, but that is the individual opinion.
Yeah.
If they do it, is it okay? It is perfectly okay, in my opinion. I don't think anyone should be arrested for that.
Yeah.
Now, the other issue is that what Ibrahim said, if you check it in Mandinka, it does not mean he is saying the president Oman Kulong.
I'm all for that.
What he said, Kulumbalia, that is characterizing what the president has done. That is not referring to the person itself.
Of the president as that.
No. If you said, that is characterizing what you have done. That is not Niko Itaman Kulong. Okay, that is now saying, okay, that person man Kulong. But if you said Kulombalia, that then there is referring to what you have done.
Yeah.
It's not, it's referring to it's characterizing the behavior and the conduct of the president. So I believe Ibrahim was referring to what the president has done, irrespective of what he has said about Hussein. Yes, so I mean, I listened to it, and I listened to it for only once because I regret that it was a waste of my time.
Yeah.
You know, so but sedition in itself is not a law that fits to be implemented within a democracy. This is a government that is established by the people.
Yeah.
And the people have the right to characterize the conduct of their president in a way they consider it fit.
Yeah.
Whether or not you agree with that. Now, the president doesn't necessarily always have to agree with that. And if this is an insult, then people must just be educated. Laws cannot punish insult. It doesn't happen in any normal democracy. Whether it's in every country, people are insulting people every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are insulting presidents every day. If you want to arrest people who insult the president on a daily basis, you wouldn't have enough prisons. The police in this country, they are constrained by resources. So there are better things to focus on than just a harmless politician who you know will not attack the president, will not participate in any coup, will not conduct any violence against the president.
Yeah.
And you can't even constitute their behavior to mean threat because they have no physical intent to physically harm the president. So I think such kind of things need to be encouraged. I mean, one of the benefits of press freedom is that it's pro-peace. Once you allow people to vent, they don't recourse to conduct. They don't do violence.
Yeah.
If you look at all the pseudo-democracies and dictatorships, the reason why they end up in violence is because they oppress press freedom. They oppress freedom, all the freedoms. And then in the end, it blows on their faces. Sedition, it's not a law. It used to be in monarchies. And even in monarchies, it was because monarchs were seen to be representatives of the gods on earth. Like, you know, like the Catholic, how do you call it? Christian Catholics have earlier alliances with monarchies, you know, like in the UK system or other places. So you can't insult the king or the queen, you know. And they were meant to revere people as gods, not, you know, representatives of gods on earth. It's not fit for a president.
It's not fit for a president. Dr. Gajigo, one thing also I want us to address quickly was the president's message in the same meeting when he talked about, he told his supporters, Al-Kana sila mansa atolo mansati, ni al-kele, ni al-lo, ali al-fangon, al-ni kele, mbal koma. And, you know, we all condemn that. But last week, we saw the opposition leader also come out and tell, Nali, ntolbe lua normal, but Nali and Killing, like we will fight back. Now, those two statements, I saw Mahdi Jobate condemning that, coming from an opposition leader telling your people. But, you know, even though we all know he's reacting to the president's statement, but how dangerous is that evil itself? President saying that and the opposition leader also telling his people, well, how dangerous is that rhetoric coming from the president and then the opposition also reacting?
No, it's very dangerous. I mean, it just shows that the level of political discourse is degenerating to a very dangerous level. Of course, again, leader of a political party, leader of the head of state. I mean, this is not the sort of conversation either of them should, should engage in. But again, I don't want to go into a reflexive, or pretend to be, in the middle for everyone. It's always important to zero in on who's responsible here.
Yeah.
Again, as Mustapha said, people react. People will react to certain things. Maybe you can disagree with what they will react. I mean, how they will react. But at the core of this problem is that it started with the head of state making a certain kind of, statement that this guy feels like he has to respond to. Now, it's really up to Mr. Darboe to decide which way to take the high road or to meet the president at the same level. He has decided to do the latter, which is to respond in kind. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the conversation has degenerated to that level because this is the last thing we need. I mean, the country, there are a lot of important issues to discuss. I mean, even if you feel hurt or feel hurt by personal insult, first and foremost, in positions like this, you have to remember what you are there for. That's why I agree with Mustapha in terms of personal laws against personal insult make no sense. And I remember making this argument to Batambedu in the very early years of the Barrow regime when they were thinking about passing a law to criminalize people insulting the parents of ministers.
Yes.
I said there are other things to focus on. This was a time when all the needed reforms that had to be done were not even touched, and they were thinking about shielding public officials from harsh criticisms. And in fact, he was using the argument that, even in advanced countries like US and Europe, they have laws against, inciting hatred against minorities. I told him, you are missing the point. Those laws are there to protect vulnerable minorities against the tyranny of the majority.
Yeah.
Because for those vulnerable minorities, there are few areas that they can seek protection from apart from the law. But here you're talking about the most powerful individuals in government. Try to equate shielding ministers and presidents from criticisms with protection of vulnerable minorities is completely missing the point. They are not analogous at all. They are not comparable. That means, this government from the very beginning at all levels, they've had incompetent ministers from the very beginning, which is why we have not gone anywhere. But to come back to your question, this is dangerous. It is true. It is the fact that we are in a situation where the leader of the largest opposition with the head of state are trading insults, they're all at this low level of discourse instead of high level of policy and development issues. It's a failure. It's dangerous for the country because any minute that is spent on this kind of trading of inflammatory words is a minute that is not spent on real problems that we have. But it must be stressed that this whole thing started because the president is the one who started, this sort of language, and then Hussein Darboe is just responding to it. The president has a responsibility to know that he is not there as a leader of the party. Once the campaign is done and he's sworn in, he is the head of state. He's representing all Gambians. When he is decrying violence or bad behavior, he should talk about it in the context of the whole country. If you are head of state, you are the executive. The executive is there in charge of law enforcement. Monopoly on the use of power is there to maintain law and order. It's not there for the protection of your supporters against those who are not. UDP supporters, Joy supporters, GDC, they are all Gambians. Once you are head of state, you are there for the whole country. And your concern should be for the protection of everyone, not to be the head of state and standing in front of a group of supporters and talking about using the power of the state for their exclusive protection. That is very wrong.
That is very wrong. And Mustapha, I have said this several times here that the opposition have not been proactive in this country. Instead of bringing on real issues, they're busy attacking the president on these trivial issues. But what we saw last week, even if you don't agree with UDP, we saw the UDP leader came out and talked about issues that a lot of Gambians want to hear. They had a press conference, and I watched that press conference from the beginning to the end. He talked about the investigation of the former Minister of Lands, who was, we all know what happened. He also talked about the president being allocated land. He talked about, a lot of issues that really, people were like, wow, this is important that now we're asking real questions, things that affect the ordinary people. Now, one thing that also came out during the president's conversation that Ismaila, the Minister of Information, reacted to was the third term issue. When people talked about the president should not run for the third term. And the president himself said he is the candidate. He was referring to UDP that Malang NPP candidate, and all of us took that as he's the candidate, and we wrote it. And Ismaila said nobody has the legal mandate for president cannot run. Now, Dr. Gajigo, excuse me, but I'm getting scared of you, the intellectuals, right? With all of these, people started bringing instances. Ismaila talked about how corrupt this government is, how President Barrow is trying to entrench himself in government. All of those interviews, from the Malagan interview, from my interview, from his Twitter, from everything. And today you can sit in front of us comfortably and tell us that we don't have the more. What has changed? Mustapha, what do you think is happening to our society when you look at people just changing perspectives and opinions overnight? Is this how we want to continue and be led by people?
Yeah, I think in terms of the society, ethical leadership, it's an issue. It's been an issue for a very long time. Leadership that is based on values by peoples who are driven by principles. That's been an issue for a very long time. And I think that's what we are seeing with our politics. And those are here from 2017 is the reason why we derailed, and it's the reason also why we are on this path. With regards to, let me just add on to what Dr. Gajigo said about the statements of the president. There are certain things that Barrow does, and it's been for a very long time, the president does for a very long time. That's very, that looks like searching for an equal for the president. The president has no equal. The president is the one who is bestowed the power to lead the country. He does not, that power does not reside in anyone else except the president. Nobody has the same mandate like the president. And so when the president looks to another person's conduct and say, I must also act this because this person acts this, this is reducing the president to a very, very low ebb. Like, this is not, it's intolerable. Because if you look at it, for example, if the president says, if their supporters did this, and so, that is problematic at two levels. One is that the president is the one not only supervising every institution in the country, but is the one in charge of good governance. Which means it's the president's job to ensure that justice is dispensed equally and timely. Now, when the president's party supporters are subjected to violations, that means the president has failed his job. The president hasn't been doing his job. So if the president could say that my supporters are being subjected to violence, that in itself is a failure of his execution of his job. Because his job is to make sure not his supporters, not UDP supporters, not PDOs, every person in the country gets justice evenly and timely. So this thing would not even have arisen if the president is doing his job. And the second thing is, he should not have reacted to lack of dispensation of justice using a partisan lens. because the president is not president of the NPP. Zenu's president is Barrow.
Barrow, yeah.
And everyone's president is Barrow.
Yeah.
And so Barrow can't be seen to be defending NPP as in matters that relate to justice dispensation. And so this is wrong. The other issue though is that with regards to, we can go back to what you've said about what our brother Ismaila has said.
Okay, before you go to Ismaila, I want to bring this because you just reminded me now. For example, if what we have seen, and I've raised this personally on my Facebook page, the president has no equal, right? But for example, Fulantala, Atelo Mobila Alfati Nyumbankoka, when it comes to governance issues. Now, Ning President is that level. Opposition leaders and other prominent Gambians, they have a lot of people. If other people are provoking and insulting those people, does that not tantamount to incitement of violence? And I have said this, there are certain people who does that frequently, and we all see it. But I have never seen the police question those. Now, when I raised it, even people brought it to my attention. You cannot say that you are a journalist, it's going to look political. But I'm saying this because, we're all looking at it in the justice lens. If we are seeing only opposition people being arrested, people that are critical to the president and his government, but we are not seeing people who on the other side are doing this and not arrested. We are seeing people who have said, done audios insulting a whole tribe, insulting opposition leaders, writing insulting opposition leaders' names. And nobody has ever questioned this. And it's the same police force who is doing this. And most of the time, I've done this since IGP Sanyang's time. I've always put it on my timeline. I said, IGP, Gambia Police Force, I'm bringing this to your attention. I'm doing it because I'm putting them on notice to see that this person is also doing this. It's okay if you arrest Fatou Toure, can you arrest this person also and question them? Because what they are doing is tantamount to incitement of violence. And that is something that is in our law books. Now, if you see people doing that and the police are not reacting, wouldn't that just say, this is what people fought for 22 years. That if you support the government, you're okay. But if you are not, you can, is that not something me alonko? It doesn't matter who I am and who I'm not. I say this not because I'm a journalist, I have a voice, but I think it's just wrong. You can have Kamunya, Baribu Kamunya, no Mustapha. Something like that, if you see that, before we get to Ismaila, is that something that is acceptable?
I get where you're coming from. It's a misapplication of justice, because what happens in a number of cases that I saw you had made reference to this earlier. I think a few days ago. When Ibrahim was arrested. This happens, in fact, this particular individual has been going around attacking journalists.
He called me a new tribalist. He called his name.
And, he is very violent, vulgar in his tone. And this has been ongoing for a very long time. But I said on Facebook, and I've said it many times over again, that you cannot have security sector reform without political reform. Because the police are controlled by political authorities. And so once the conversation at the level of the politics is still at that level, where safasitla hansa and beolel bulok many along foseke nyanchola directly ta political, that politics will only lead to this kind of business. It's harassment, it's violence, because the nature of that politics in itself is violent. That's what we've been doing from independence to now. Politics hasn't got to a point where we value people with sense. We value people who are thinking even for the sake of it. And that's the politics that will take us away from this. So that when conversation is elevated to a level where when people sit down, two political leaders sit down, they confront each other based on what the needs of the people are, or what the policy shortfalls are, what the policy challenges are. then we wouldn't have to deal with the party, someone and somebody party, we wouldn't have to deal with that. Because then the conversation would have been at another level.
Exactly.
Because there is so much to talk about.
There's so much to talk about.
Exactly. But because we are at this level, now you are having all this back and forth. And this is going to, and the police at any point, you know, these guys are going to ask the police to arrest you. Because they control the police. You know, the police, you know, we have history of having police officers go and make president murder their sister. And, this is the country where we are. You know, SSR cannot take place without political reform. It's a waste of time.
It is.
Because the security, who asks the securities to do what they need to do? It's the political master. And the political masters are surrounded by people who sabarkos lalen, safasit lalen, that's the nature of our politics, no?
We have to elevate.
Exactly. So if you don't elevate it, this is the only result.
The doctor Lefenko about the Tatam.
About the Tatam, you know, I mean, quite frankly, you know, people say obvious all the time, like, oh, Barrow, we don't have a new constitution. Nobody should tell anybody that. I don't say it's like me telling people my name is Mustapha. This is not necessary because they know my name. So we don't have a new constitution. Yes, there is no third term for a 2-term limit in the constitution. Yes, that's an obvious. It's clear. But the question is, the president, when he was coming to power, he himself said he's against, how did he call it? He's against, you know, the watch phrase at the time was self-perpetuation.
Yes.
Yeah, so Barrow was borrowing from Halifa. You know, Halifa keeps saying self-perpetuating leadership. So Barrow also hung on to that dearly. Everybody was talking about self-perpetuation. And so self-perpetuation, by their own explanation, was that there should be 2 terms limit. And Barrow, in fact, said he is a big fan of 2 terms limit. So nobody is softening this down Barrow's throat. He said it himself. He said he wants to stop at 2 terms. And the second phase of the argument is, we don't have a new constitution. We don't have. Who is the reason why we don't have a new constitution?
Very good point.
That is the reason. It is the government that is the reason why we don't have a new constitution. Because part of of course, there are many issues everyone had in the new constitution, including opposition. Opposition are quiet, but they have a lot of issues
that they don't like.
That they don't like in the new constitution. But the major issue that surfaced was the retroactive clause that says the president that is. And part of the thing is that the president said the constitution targeted him. And these people said the constitution. So why, if the constitution, the fact that the president said the constitution targeted him meant the president wanted to go for 3rd term. Because the only thing targeting there is the retroactive clause.
So that means from the get-go, this was the intent.
This was the intent. And so it's clear 2 things. 1, the president wanted 3rd term, was 1. 2, it's part of the reasons why the constitution didn't go. And president holds the primary mandate to pass the new constitution, no other person. 2, 3, I mean, if they wanted political reform, because the president has said, you know, he's going to stop for 2 terms. The president has said that. So what is the point? If you have said, I love 2 terms, you have the opportunity to now do what you love.
Exactly.
You should just go ahead and do it.
Ismail Barrow is a big fan of term limits. But Barrow forced term from 2017 to 2021 was a messy transition. It was not considered as a term, so nobody should think of Barrow term. So Ako Barrow term, first term starter 2021. So is that how we calculate a term?
Well, of course not. But it's a very sad situation. In fact, the fact that we actually have to respond to something Dr. Ismail Cisse has said, because I mean, but as everyone should know, I mean, this is not a man with any integrity. He would say anything if it gets him to, today, to get him what he wants today. If we all listen to what Dr. Caesar has said over the past couple of years and what he is saying today, it's a complete opposite. A man who can completely change his position, the complete opposite of what he has said, what he claimed to have believed in within a short time period with no change in the realities, is a man who basically has zero principles and zero integrity. Yeah, but this is a sad situation. I'm just saying that I really wish I live in a world where I don't have to listen to characters like that or have to respond to their comments. But here we are, this is the reality we are in. So I have no choice but, you have no choice but to pose me that question. So I have no choice but to respond to it. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, I find it very funny that they keep repeating that that the president has the right to stand for 3 terms. It's like whenever you have somebody starting out by saying somebody has the right to do something, here is somebody who usually don't have much of a higher reason for that action. We have a right to do a lot of things, but just because we have a right to do something doesn't mean it is the proper thing to do. Legal right and something that is right in a natural justice way are not the same thing. I have the, I have the right to promise you, something, and then next minute I break my promise. It wouldn't qualify as a violation of a contract or even under civil law. I have the right to do that. Yeah. The law wouldn't punish me in a criminal court for breaking my promise. But is that breaking my promise, is that the right thing to do in a natural justice way, in a justifiable, proper relationship between people? The same thing applies to the president. Just like when we talked about in a few years back, when people were talking about 3 years Jotna, the president on multiple occasions, when the agreement they had wasn't a legal enforceable agreement. It was an understanding that the president was going to stand for 3 years. Yeah. I mean, was going to be in power for 3 years, and after that, there would be, a transition. But then when the time came, all the argument we started saying was that the president, the law gave him, he had the legal right to serve as his term, which is 5 years. The question became what was morally right, that got forgotten. It became what was legally right. Now the same argument is being used in this term limit thing. Instead of thinking about a proper transition, what Dr. Caesar is saying, I mean, it's just, if you think about it, it just shows that this is not a government. They are completely contradicting themselves. Yeah. If you are saying that there was a messy transition, well, I would actually say there has been zero transition. But if you are saying there was messy transition and then this guy has to extend his hold onto power, the point here being the part of the transition is actually, doing reform, deviating from what has been the norm, bad things that have been in the norm, that's self-perpetuating, deviating from it. So if you are actually trying to justify the president staying an additional term, based on this argument that there was no proper transition in that 4th term, when will we actually have a proper transition? So basically, to answer your question, the government here again, they are just rehearsing the same set of arguments that have been used before, making it seem as if the critics are using a legal argument when there is no such thing. We are appealing to what is proper, what was expected, what was expected, what was the what is the morally right thing to do. There is no legal contract here. In fact, you cannot do anything of the sort where somebody would say, except if it is in the law or the constitution, where the president in a political party can just sign a document and say, I'm going to be here 2 times. You can't enforce that. It's not an enforceable contract. So this is never the argument here. So basically, it's just a way to deviate people from the real argument. The real argument here is, if this is a government that you trust to keep its word, forget about it. They never kept their word before about the 3-year limit. The president's statements about a term limit, they were, he's not going to keep that. And right now they are preparing their justifications for why he's going to start for it, for that term.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that Mustapha that came up yesterday was the press conference, the major press conference. And I think all the issues that we want to address here on this show were addressed on the press conference. Now, we will start first with the land issues. Now, the Minister of Lands and Local Government, my friend Ahmad Ba, I want to claim him, he's my friend, but I think I called him yesterday myself personally because I wanted, I felt like Ahmad Ba should graduate from attacking the media. Every single opportunity he has, he calls us journalists. He calls us poor. Ahmad, we're not as poor as you think. We're good, And I think he should just stop using that rhetoric, trying to...
I think Ahmad does that to attack the dignity of journalists.
Yeah. I find it very insulting.
I find it very offensive every time he said that, and it's stupid. It's not even funny.
It's not funny.
It's not funny.
It's not funny. Number one, you call journalists journalists.
It's not funny. Journalists who are doing job that politicians like him were not doing before they got employed.
Yeah.
It's not funny.
It's a very dignified profession. People are making millions from this profession. And people are, dignified living out of this profession. So all the time calling us names, you don't make money out of this. That's why
he does that to break
people down. That is mentally is wrong.
I mean, as old as I have attended Ahmad's press conference, he said this every time.
And that is wrong. He needs to stop. It's like old news. It's old fashioned. And he even called Flex Dan. When Flex woke up to ask the question, he was like, "Oh yeah, I listened to you. You always that show always misinformation." Like seriously.
I just to give you a short story.
Yeah.
When I was doing a story on the last story I just did on James assets, which is relating to the sale of the livestock. I called Hamad because I had a lot of folks told me he bought James cattle. I called them. And what he did was, after the exchange on the phone, I got a journalist call me, say he's investigating me. And I said...
The journalist said he's investigating
you. And we were having a conversation. And I said, and he said, you should... And he started asking me stupid questions about how Malagan was established. And I said, well, I'm no longer at Malagan. He said, yes, I know that, but how Malagan was established using GPU funds I had. I said, oh, really? He said, yes. He said, you, my colleagues, and, and he mentioned Sirif Genio. And I said, well, look, Sirif Genio was not part of Malagan. And so he edited it and he said, yeah, but you, I said, calm down. I said, which project fund did they say we had used at the GPU? You know that I was a board member, not the secretary. He said, yes. I said, did you go to the GPU secretariat to find out from the accounts department? He said, no, but and in the conversation, he said he burned himself. He said, you should listen to questions. You just call Hamad.
Oh.
And I said, how did you know I call Hamad?
Oh.
He said, I call Hamad, and Hamad oddly picked up the phone and said, you are also speaking to Hamad. He's Darboe and I am Darboe too. And he said, Hamad oddly told me you were speaking. Oh, I thought he was speaking to you. He said, Mr. Darboe. I said, Hamad just said Mr. Darboe and you thought it's Mustapha K. Darboe?
Yeah.
And we were talking about the cattle?
How did you know that?
So, but this tells you who Hamad is. I mean, that's... Unfortunately, I've had a good relationship with Hamad.
I do have a very good relationship.
I find a number of his behavior
especially if you are friends to me or other people, you cannot just attack our profession. We don't attack you personally. And I feel
not just that.
I find this very insulting.
It's a behavior that's it's a behavior that's grossly unbecoming. Do your job and allow others to do
their job.
When journalists stand up to ask questions, hear the question first. Listen and then give an answer. Don't interrupt and say, don't characterize the questions, stupid question, this question, that. Don't characterize the question. Don't characterize the individual asking the question. You have an answer, shut up. Ask people, get the questions, then respond. And that you never get in any press conference Hamad is. He doesn't get, and for him also, this is his own embarrassing strategy of avoiding accountability.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing because it's shameful. I mean, when you listen to it, I mean, when I listen to that president, I see that president, and I'm saying, people who come into this country like diplomats, you know, normal people, like, and they're seeing this, they're saying, yes, this is a state minister. Look at the way he's talking, like, you know. It's embarrassing. I mean, really. I mean, I think he thinks he's embarrassing others.
Yeah, he thinks he's getting to others.
Behavior. I mean, you listen to it, no?
Yeah. No, I listened to it. I mean, that exchange with that guy from West Coast, I listened to it.
Yeah.
Well, as somebody who is not a journalist and who is listening to him, I think I can bring a perspective here as to how it sounds.
Yeah.
And it's very unprofessional. And I don't know what he thinks he's accomplished. I believe I know what I think. What he's trying to do. Yeah. Because it's like, let me try to disarm these people, fluster them, or make light of their question. That way, there's less pressure on me to respond to, in a substantive way, what they are trying to ask. But it's not really working. I mean, that strategy is, I don't think who's advising him. But if that is his belief, it's not working, because when people listen to it, what they see is somebody who is not taking his job seriously. A national press conference is a serious matter. If journalists, do I care journalists don't have a lot of money? What is important that they are doing their job in a dignified way. Yeah. Whether they are rich or they are poor, it doesn't matter. Let them do their job correctly. And you, as a minister who is heading a very important ministry, you have a responsibility to the people. And the way you talk to people is mainly through the media. So if they are asking you questions, those questions are relevant for the stakeholders you represent. So give them the courtesy of listening to them and then answer in a respectable way.
And for you know, I want to bring this also, the attack on Honorable D.A. Jao, the former Minister of Information. And, you know, telling us that, oh, the reason why you guys are not getting money is because how can one man own a TV station, a radio station, and own a GSM company, and all? He's talking about the QTV, right? And, you know, as a business person, I don't believe QTV, the QCell group should have a QTV, but it's your government that issued that license. But you are shifting all of that blame to an individual, the Minister of Information, and saying that this person did it behind cabinet. You know, I saw Mahdi said something and shared something, you know, out of secrecy. When you are in cabinet, deliberations of cabinet that are not supposed to come out. You're saying that this guy, the president didn't want it. The president, but that same TV, it's your #1 favorite TV of your government today. And you're still coming after that group and trying to make us feel that, oh, these people should not be here, and attacking an honorable person who, you know, a lot of us journalists see as somebody, as a role model in the industry. That is very confusing. How Ahmad sometimes make himself outside this government. When it's convenient, when it's things that he wants to talk about, he makes him look like, you know, me. We'll come to that. Even the land issue. Ahmad is acting like he's just coming into government. All of these things that happened in Kamalo, Ahmad was in government.
He was in cabinet.
But he is making himself look like, and he was at the ministry that also, you know, a lot of land issues happened there. I'm not blaming him. I'm not saying he's the one, but don't make it look like you are out of government when all of these things
Not
are
only
happening.
we need to blame if you are in a ministry and things happen on that ministry, ultimate responsibility in that sector falls under you. So I think actually think when he was tourism ministry, anything that happened at the time, he has to take responsibility.
Now he believes nothing happened. Now let's look at the press conference itself, the Kamalo issue. Did you read, you know, listen to what he said? You know, it was it was the opposition leader who raised the question, because the press conference was supposed to be about the Minister of Youth and Sports. That's what we got, first press release that they sent us. Now they updated it the day before to say the Minister of Lands will also be there. Now the Kamalo investigative report has been ready. It was not it was not shared, we didn't have it. But yesterday the minister read so many revelations, how the entire 66 plots were allocated. Some of it was allocated, some people were allocated more than one. You know, how many nationalities, all of that he revealed. No environmental assessment was done proper. There were sometimes people did not even pay the 50,000 allocation fees. There were orders that the minister did not even approve. There were orders the minister himself did not approve. But when Ahmad was asked about, he was talking about the Director of Lands and this person. he was asked about the minister. He said, I cannot talk about that. He's not in government. Now, this was the head of the ministry at that time. First, what is your assessment of that entire report? Very damning, very crazy. Thank God they're cancelling all the allocations.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a serious matter. I mean, yeah, I mean, what was really what struck out for me was the way Ahmad was reading this as if he was the head of some independent watchdog that is outside of government, and he had no role or responsibility in that government. When in reality, Ahmad Ba is a cabinet minister in that government, was a cabinet minister during these times, has been from the very beginning. He may not have been the minister of land, but he was nonetheless, member of the highest decision-making authority in the cabinet. I mean, which is the cabinet. So I just found it very strange. I mean, this is not the first time Ahmad has taken this. Approach. The same thing during the so-called national dialogue, when everyone was coming to make a speech. Ahmad went there speaking as if he's a leader of opposition, blaming all of the effects of the bad policies of the government as if he's played no role in it, when he's again at the top decision-making authority of the executive, which is the cabinet. So I don't. Ahmad Ba is like some sort of like somebody who has a script, and he's playing like a character on the national stage. And you can tell this guy doesn't take his roles and responsibilities seriously. So it really demeans the whole issue of this land misallocation when you have somebody like Ahmad Ba reading its conclusion on national TV with that kind of theoretical performance. But as I listened to that whole thing also, what struck out at me was, I think like it's supposedly the finding of a task force. This is one of the problems again. It's like we have and I wrote a couple of articles on this about how this government pretends to rule when they could easily do substantive actions, but they want to go through theoretical performance to make it appear to people that they are doing something when in reality they are not doing nothing. It's just like a role play for them. You have land allocations being done, and your own report easily show that these go against all existing regulations and laws. Why do you need a task force to spend a lot of time? I mean, this whole thing about task force here, commissions of inquiry here, they are long on processes and short on substance. If you want an excuse for doing nothing or to delay time, just create a task force. It can spend a year or two working. If somebody asks you any question, the task force is still doing its work. The commission of inquiry is not done yet. It is still preparing its report. We will act on it with a white paper. We'll act on its recommendation when it comes. It's all just a government that is not serious about doing their job. It's just a role playing. So when Ahmad Ba talks about no environmental and social impact assessment, no ministerial approval, no payment of fees, he's actually pointing to actual violations of laws and regulations that are there. These things, what they were asking for, instead of a very lengthy report and recommendation and theoretical delivery, is just asking for simple thing, which is execution of existing policies, incomplete as they are, just enforcing existing laws and regulation. He spent a lot of time talking about the absence of land policy. Yes, it's not there, fine, it's never too late to do it. But we all know policies in general, whether it's in health or education, in aspects of economy, land, agriculture, what happens in these policy documents is that the government goes approach one UN agency like UNDP, FAO, asks for a little bit of money. They go and pay a consultant 10,000. The consultant writes a policy document. Few meetings are held at hotels, consultation reports are done, validation workshops are done. The policy is written, filed in a cabinet, never to be seen again. It is very easy to write these policy documents. What is a problem, what has been continuously a problem, and with a government like Adama Barrow will remain to be a problem, is that you have a government that no matter how great a policy document is, they cannot operationalize it, they cannot execute it.
Why is that?
Well, it's first and foremost, it starts with the competence and the integrity of the people. When you have a leadership that is incompetent, you have an incompetent minister like Ahmad Ba, whether it's in tourism, whether it's in land, or wherever he might end up in this current administration. It doesn't matter what's written on a piece of paper. Ahmad Ba is not a serious individual to implement and execute any policy.
Well, he promised to implement this report, though, to the latter.
Let's find out. The government has promised many things. They promised that we will have a national dialogue. What has happened to that? There are many sectors where things are happening, where there are very well-written policy documents. They are in all other sectors. It's actually, the exceptions are sectors that don't have policy documents. The vast majority of them have sector strategies and documents, and policy documents. But that has not led to things being done correctly. Look at the Ministry of Finance. Various aspects of finance have policy documents written, strategy documents written, but fiscal, fiscal indiscipline, lack of prioritization in expenditures, all of these things are abundant in the country. But the policy documents, its absence itself is not a cause of what has happened here. Its absence is an effect. So as long as you have incompetent leadership, starting from the State House, because the reason why you have Ahmad Ba actually as a minister is because we don't have the right leadership at the State House, because Ahmad Ba is not fit to be a minister. So this is the situation we are in. So when that leadership failure is there, policy documents is not even worth talking about. So this is just a theoretical so. I hope that the allocations get get rescinded. That is the easy thing to do. Phase 1, he said they are going to cancel all of that. But what will happen post that? Will they use that to forget about other things like the allocation of land to the president himself that is questionable? Will they even look at that properly? I think they will actually use this issue to try to create a smoke screen over other issues that we want to look into, but they don't want to talk about.
They don't want to talk about. Mustapha, the Kamalo issue is just one part of land issues. They said, number one, Ahmad even said the file of the Kamalo project even is lost. Now, how can any proper investigation be done if that file itself is lost? Ahmad said the file is lost. Let me repeat it. That file is lost. He said there were 66 plots that were allocated. They're investigating that. They're canceling that and all of that. And he promised that they will implement this to the latter. Now, what is your own observation about this Kamalo land allocation?
There are, Gajigo was talking about people who are pretending to be governing and not governing.
Yeah, that's kind of funny to me, though.
It's funny to me too, but it seems to be the ideal characterization of our situation right now. We're pretending to be doing what we should be doing. So, for example, if you look at this whole charade, this is not the first conversation we had on Kamalo area. The conversation started way back, and it started with the Tanbi wetland.
The Tanbi wetland, yes.
From Banjul.
Yes. Because
this whole site, this whole area from Banjul to Bakau, I think, to Kanifing area. Is it Joswang area?
Yeah.
Was
it's around the Joswang.
Was all a reserved ecological environment. And it's this Ramsar Convention thing. And so this whole area is a protected area. Development started way from Banjul area. And part of the conversations when we were addressing, when the issue of flooding in Banjul came up, people said Banjul's breathing space.
Yeah.
It's the Bone Road area, outskirt of Banjul, going towards the lake.
Yeah.
They've allocated all that area.
All of that, yes.
And so because the waterways were clogged, were packed with buildings and all this. And that's where the water reservoir, that serves as the buffer for the water that's flowing outside of Tobacco Road through when it's pumped, you know, there's a pump.
There's a pump there, you know, during the rainy season.
So there are a lot of people. I'm not an engineer, but of course we all have sense. You see, when waterways are blocked, you don't need to be an engineer to see it. And so a lot of people said this place should not have been allocated in the first place, but those areas are allocated. Yeah. And this is also a reserve ecological site. Like I said, this is part of, it's in fact part of an internationally ratified convention. He quoted that, in fact, the Ramsar Convention. He quoted that.
He quoted it,
Now, so this whole thing, that started from Tanbi, and it goes all the way to where we're talking about now. Now, so this is a long conversation. They just picked a tiny fraction of the problem and they give that as a report. Why did the task force go all the way to Tanbi wetland and look at the allocations there and report on that? That's the first question. And the second question is the government staff published this whole report. Not they published a summary. They sent a summary out. But they should have published the whole report. First, we need to know who are the people who are allocated. These individuals who allocated them, who are the individuals who allocated them. And also, what are the criminal liabilities? Because land administration is governed by laws in the Gambia and regulations, basically laws, right? And so, when people are giving a task to do, the law also punishes either not doing it or doing it wrongly. And so you can't misallocate land or wrongly allocate land or give land to people as though it's in biscuit, and the law does not punish you. The law punishes you. So why is minister addressing a violation, a criminal conduct in the media? Criminal conducts are supposed to be addressed in the court. Do you see it? And so he's playing to the gallery. And this has happened before. I mean, you have ministers who come and they say a lot of high-sounding slogans.
We are going to do this,
We're going to do this, we're doing that. And people get wow. But the truth is that when a violation happened, it should not have been addressed in the media. The best place to address a criminal conduct is in the court. You see. So, but this is not prosecuted. There is no criminal investigation. Not that at least we don't know about it. You know. So you know, people. I think, and I've said it. You know, last time one of the posts I made on Facebook, and I said, we need to mobilize critical minds in this country the same way we mobilize resources. Same way we go to IMF or World Bank or ABD or ADB to get money. It's the same way we need to go and get critical minds. Because we cannot have a democracy without critical minds. When you have performers like Ahmad come to play to the gallery, you need to have critical minds to question what they've presented before the public. If you have come to tell me people have violated a law, and you haven't come to tell me what you've done with those people, what are you telling me? Because you're giving me a list of 68 plots, 68 different land that were misallocated, and some given as though they are biscuit. Because if you are allocated a public land, you didn't even pay, you are giving. Then who? Giving to who? Probably we don't even know if the former minister allocated to himself, you know, or he has allocated to his friend, or Barrow or any of Barrow's friends also get an allocation there. We don't know any of those. So the people need to have adequate information before they make the right judgment. And that the minister should not have brought his problem. The problems, the problem, when we elect people or when we appoint people, they don't come to tell us the problem. We can't fix our problem. It's like when you criticize, they said you should criticize, bring us the solution. It's not our business.
That's not
No, it's not my business to tell you the solution. That's not my job. It's not my business. You are appointed to find the solution. I may not know the solution. I may just know that this water doesn't taste right, but I may not know what to do with it. to fix the problem. So, and it's not my job to fix that problem. You're the one elected to fix that problem. I may know the problem, but I don't know the solution. Don't criminalize criticism. Yeah, so when you criticize it, you need constructive criticism. Who says criticism needs to be constructive? No, there is no such thing. Constructive criticism. It's a political language.
It's a political language.
That is just meant to censor people. Nobody needs to be constructive in anything. You just don't like it. This thing doesn't sound right. It does not. It's my opinion. I say it doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
It does not seem right. I said it doesn't seem right. And so when the minister comes to bring us a problem, he shouldn't bring the problem to the people. What are we going to do with that? If he brings a problem, he should have told people what he has been doing about it.
The problem.
Yeah, I think that's what I think Ahmad was playing to the gallery. Because like I said, the problem was much bigger. It started all the way from Tanbi. Yes, that's just right behind Tobacco Road. It started, all that place is allocated. And even on the beach, on the other side, they're allocating a lot of places. And it's not, this is not the first time about the environmental impact assessment. I've done, most of the stories I have done, most construction projects here are done in violation of the NEA Act. They don't do environmental impact assessment, including the Banjul project. The roads they build in Banjul, there was no EIA. So there was no EIA.
There's no EIA.
Yeah, you address a construction work in one of the most ecologically vulnerable cities in Africa, probably the most vulnerable. Because Banjul, you can't even, dig a well.
No environmental assessment.
There's no EIA. It's true. If there is any, let them publish it. If there is none.
And also one thing that came up, which, obviously the minister reacted, was the opposition leader demanding for the president to talk to us about the allocation that was made to him at the Fajara, just if you go into the British Embassy area.
Right next to Jawara's place.
Yes, I mean, I drove by and I saw some barricade. I'm like, this place, who's then? The person driving me said, oh, we call Barora Retirement Home. I'm like, whoa, what a nice area to live in. But I, later on, when I got to hear stuff about that and who's building it, and the opposition leader hinted that it's been built by one of Barrow's friends. For him, who's building it, his construction company is building it. And it's alleged that this person also has a lot of contracts from government, but he wants clarity on how was that land allocated. Because according to the opposition leader, that used to be the resident of the Chief Justice. He had visited the former Chief Ayala there several times. In fact, the people were there. This person also told me before they cleared, they had to take officers to remove people there and clear the entire space. Now, when I spoke to somebody, because before coming to the show 2 days ago, I started checking, because I was expecting that they would address it at a press conference. When I saw the Ministry of Land included, but Minister said he will respond to that appropriately. He said, I will respond to my brother appropriately. But when I spoke to somebody in the system, somebody who was in the ministry, somebody who, was around corridors of power, what he said was the president was allocated land around Bruford Heights. Now, he had written allegedly for them to cancel that allocation and give him this space because, for security reasons, and it was much better. I said, but this was land that allegedly was leased to government. It's not like an estate or something that's where they're allocating to people. Why is that? Number one, the one that was allocated to him was a 50 by 50. This is more than that. And, how was that process done? Who approved it? Yeah. But also, I was told the person pivoted and said, but even though Darboe, his house and pipeline was allocated to him during Jawara time. So that is an allocation. How can he talk about allocation? His family members have been allocated land. And my response was, but as a private citizen, he has a right to get that. I mean, I'm not here to answer that. But number one, when you think about that allocation, if it is right, if it is right that the president was allocated that land, what is your observation on that?
No, it is problematic. I mean, you cannot equate the holder of the office of the president with, let's say, a private citizen or a civil servant. It's not the same thing. I mean, you see, as the leader of the country, I mean, you have so much power and, so much, I mean, your power over the state is like, I wouldn't say absolute, but it's so high, it's, we have to be very, very careful how that is exercised. The president has the financial means to purchase land. There is land. There's no shortage of land available in Fajara to be purchased, or Brufut Heights, or anywhere in the country. He has the means. Based on his declaration before the last election, he definitely has the means. But this is not the first time we have seen things that are ethically dubious. The president has been given plots of land in Senegal. We don't even, there's a video of Dr. Ismail Cisse questioning how the president's land in Mankamankunda was built, who financed it, where it came from. Maybe Dr. Ismail Cisse, one of these days in his press conferences, can tell us, can repeat that question, and maybe now that he's in the government, maybe he has the answers now. Somehow, for some reason, I doubt he will want to revisit that question. But coming back to your question here, it is. I mean, you can't have an administration headed by a president that is getting land allocated to him from public land, and that president is serious about fighting corruption. Sometimes it is not just, even let us even assume, even if all of this allocation has been done by the book, it is not a proper thing. It is sometimes the appearance of improprieties is just as bad as the act itself. The president has the financial means to purchase land, and there are some things where you do have a responsibility to lead by example. When there's no shortage of misallocation of land by public officials. This whole land in this Kamalo area, it is, actually high-ranking public officials behaving in ways that are not supposed to happen. Now, if the tone is set by the president that certain kinds of behavior are not going to be allowed, that sort of, violation of land laws or regulations wouldn't have occurred if the tone had been set by the president. But when you have the president himself, from the very beginning of his administration, accepting gifts that are improper, that call into question, his judgment, it shouldn't be surprising that we have other unethical behavior by officials. So I think it's very improper. You cannot convince any outsider right now that there was no undue influence on the staff at physical planning when they are presented with a proposal that the president wants to be allocated a public land. How can we be certain that that was done in any objective, transparent, and clear manner? No. So the president, the way you take leadership, as a president of a nation, is you actually set the example. And this is not something that's consistent with that kind of leadership behavior where you lead by example.
But also, does it not show to us that Tonya president wants to leave? He's building a retirement home. He wants to leave power. He wants to go settle in Gambia. He should be comfortable. We should take comfort from the fact that the president knows he was going to leave office soon. The fact that he's building his retirement home means that he might be thinking about leaving. So.
Well, Jame built a bigger retirement home in Kanilai without any immediate plans of retirement. The compound is not going to fly away. And a compound building doesn't depreciate as fast as a car or something. So you can build a compound now that you expect to live in 20 years from now. You just have to do a manual refurbishment. So I seriously doubt that I can take that as an indicator that President President Barrow is planning to leave anytime soon.
No, I mean, at least it's talking about his intent.
He's talking about for retirement. Now, Mustapha,
well, he spoke about his intent to do 5 more years.
5 more years, yeah. The year he said that. Now, Mustapha, for me, I have a right to apply for land. You do.
I think
that we all have a right to apply for land.
Him.
So as the president, you don't think he has a right to be allocated land? Because he is also a citizen. Yeah. He had deserved to be...
yes. I think he has the right, but then...
Yeah.
you know, me, I'm not interested in primitive accumulation of wealth. If you have reasonably amount of money to live a dignified living, that's sufficient.
Okay.
Nobody needs a wealth you don't need, essentially. I mean, Darboe has so much land already. I mean, he has two villas at Tough. He has two villas at Tough.
Okay.
He has, and that's what we know. He has Mankamankunda, a big land. That
Senegal,
several. You know, and you know here, you know, Talending, he has two. He has one in Yarambamba. You know, these are the ones he is comfortable telling us. And there would be a lot more. He's not, and his business has grown so big. The one that his nephew is handling. And so, what does he want again? I mean, for me, if I were in his shoes, I wouldn't burden the poor people with that again. You know, because all those also far, you may necessarily have, you know, something, but leadership is a very difficult job.
Yeah.
Yes, it's you're going to be account for everything, every butut you utilized in the name of the people, not one, and he knows that. So he should be very careful, because you can have, of course, it can be a privilege for you to do this. You have the right to allocate yourself. But then the question is, you are in charge of a population, half of which is living, over half, 54, is living below $1 a day. This is public resources. It could be utilized for something else, more beneficial to poor people in the neighborhood. If you allocate that to yourself and you go and face the Lord of the Sun and the Moon, and he asks you, but what did you do with your people? You're going to say, well, I build a retirement home and lavish myself on a beach side until the time has come for me to meet you. I think that would be very difficult to explain, regardless of whatever we say about right or wrong.
Yeah.
But he should think about how he will explain this before his Lord. That's critical. I mean, I know people don't think about that often, but that's
critical.
That's critical. I mean, you governing people, half of which are living below $1 a day.
Yeah.
Over half of your population. You are busy about buying cars and building nice houses. You should be thinking about that, because even comfort, leaders who are conscious of that, they were worried about comfort. I'm telling you, read the history of leaders who have faith, and they are conscious of this. They are worried. They are terrified of comfort, because they thought, if I have so much comfort far apart from my people, and if I face the Lord of the Sun, what am I going to say? You know, like, you know, this comfort you've been enjoying. Yeah, but did you know that there's this Samba guy in Wuli? This guy is so much higher in my ranks myself that I called him my special friend. Did you know this night he did not eat? What are you going to say?
Yeah.
You were lavishing yourself in some mansion in some beach side.
Yeah, interesting.
I think these are things they should think of.
Absolutely.
I mean, but Darboe particularly, because one time he was saying, Ko esafal man takwasoto. You remember that?
What is that?
No, he said esafal does not have. He said, well, he was talking about esafal, you know, the time Alabun telling the meeting. He said, you remember this day it was this time he said esafal came to me about a land allocation he wanted.
Yes.
And when he left, I told people that this guy is going to stand for presidency.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yes.
And after that conversation, he said, you know, I'll cut out the and somebody may takwasoto does not indulge in primitive accumulation of wealth. Yes, everybody does have, you can get reasonable amount of money and resources for yourself. But money you don't need, especially when it's public.
Yeah.
that you are careful of.
That you're careful.
Yeah.
I know there's this thing I want to bring up, but I don't want us to get in deep. But Mustapha, you know, over the weekend I was around Batokunko and somebody was showing me a vast land that belonged to Jame. And there were also some land, you know, that the commission did not capture in their report, lands that were belonging to Jame. Allegedly, these lands, one of Jame's relatives came from the US and went with officials from the ministry to identify these lands to them, officials. Now, we, the citizens, never knew about these lands. But some of these lands have been allocated. And you cannot imagine what you hear about these lands, who they are allocated to. The land in Lamen that our people were fighting was part of that. That was allocated to Suku. Now, when people saw that, this person was allocated the same in Batokunko, and he sold a chunk to a big real estate company. And I was in that area. If you see, Jame would be fence. Now, if you're hearing who they are allocating this land to, based on what?
Yeah, but you know, Mustapha, you know, for me, I can't seriously, but only temporarily. Because if you are a real estate, legitimate business, and you buy that land, you are a fool. Because that will be taken from you. Yeah. It will be. Yeah. I mean, it's just a question of time. Barrow is not going to be here forever. He himself knows that. Jame was not here forever. Jawara was not here. Leadership is like the sun. The fact that it sets, so must the leader change.
The fact that this land is from Jame and we have taken away.
Yeah, but
nobody's learning from this.
Tombon Jata told us about this.
Yeah.
Tombon said, the No to Alliance Molo, they are criticized, they don't want Jame to come back. That is why they are frustrating the peace accord between him and Barrow. But because they are benefiting from Jame's land, some of them are residents in Jame's land, the government is not aware of that. Tombong said that in the lead up to presidential election. So that means even Tombong, there are properties Jame own, government is not aware of that. He himself knows.
And he is part of the government coalition.
That is not just part, he is
third in command.
He's like the third in command.
Speaker of the National Assembly. Yeah, it is very...
So we know about these things. But if you are also buying those lands, or if you are selling those lands, or you are buying them, you are both at risk.
Exactly.
Because people know those lands.
Yes.
And these
reports are available.
Yes.
There are some people who...
for me, there are certain things, if people are doing, you just get angry, but just keep quiet.
Like over the weekend, I was like... I could
it's all over the place.
It
can land si falmen for bela allocate. But these things we know. Violations that are happening, the only thing is to put it on record. But people know these things. If you have a government, even if you have a useless government, that's also going to be like another Barrow government that's going to be corrupt.
Yeah.
They are corrupt.
But still, they will rectify the corruption of the past one.
So they try to fix the past one.
And then get corrupt.
To get it for themselves. So either ways, the people will have their own...
Eventually. Now, the other thing that was addressed is the cement issue. Dr. Gajigo, you have written extensively about that. It was addressed. The Minister of Information read a statement on behalf of the Ministry of Trade where, number one, they have engaged the importers, and he said some very important news will come out of that, very positive. That will be positive for the ministry, government, and also the importers. Now, but the Minister of Lands, though, Ahmed Ba, I tell a statement on that is very interesting. He said something that I can't agree with him. You know, he said, they are doing this to protect Gambian businesses because in Senegal, we have 38 products that cannot enter Senegal. He quoted Salam having a factory in Senegal, and you know he has a contract there. They didn't allow his trucks for days, 20 days. He had to come back home. He also talked about President Jomai raised the cement issue with President Barrow. Now, somebody told me this one time, and I said, I didn't believe it, but the person told me exactly this is what President Barrow told Jomai. Now, Ahmad is also saying the same thing. The president, when Jomai raised it, the president told Jomai that, yes, it's happening. ntole nga raise but atol la mol ntol 38 products le bembulu mi alon ko la mol buka songa dunga la banko kan and you guys being nationalist people you know at least you know anyanta understand la ntol from a perspective something like that now my issue with this is this and I've said this to officials of Jar Oil. Number one, can Jar Oil and Salam and Gasem supply this country with number one, quality and a stable pricing. That is key. Jar Oil had a press conference on Monday where they were showing us their might. I think they said they can produce 10,000 bags a day. Now in a week, that's what 70,000, close to 100,000 in a week. I don't know what our demand is, but what we have seen with this issue is the cement price have gone up. I was buying cement yesterday. It was at 450. Something that I was buying for 390 a week ago is 450 yesterday.
Right.
Moma for them. Now, my issue with this is, did the government think about us, the consumers, when they were doing this? And how soon are they able to solve this? Because the consumers are the ones having issues with this right now.
Yeah, no, this is interesting issue. I've definitely been following this issue since 2018 because this is not the first time the government has attempted to intervene. Let me say, before I go to the real, what's really at issue here, let me address this issue about, like government intervening to protect the Gambian businesses.
Yeah.
It is true, the government has a responsibility. If Gambian businesses are being mistreated, it has a responsibility to go and defend Gambian businesses. Do it in a proper way. That is something that you are expected to do.
Yeah.
And if the government is really doing that, if there's a genuine issue where one country is without any basis victimizing Gambian businesses, the government has a duty to actually go and defend Gambian businesses. And if they were doing that, they would have my wholehearted support. But the truth, Fatou, is that this issue about the cement has nothing to do with looking at Gambian businesses, protecting them against unfair policies by Senegal. It has nothing to do with that. The real issue here is the Gambia government, prioritizing the interest of one company, which is Jar Oil, at the expense of the nation's interest. Let me tell you how.
How?
When this thing started in 2018, the argument that Jar Oil was pushing at the time was that Jar Oil, Salam, and Gasem, they were manufacturing cement in the Gambia, and these small-scale importers that were bringing it from Senegal were, allowing Senegalese cement to come and basically take Gambian manufacturers out of business. They were presenting their operations as manufacturing. The truth of the matter is we have zero manufacturing of cement in the Gambia. We don't.
You don't.
Jar Oil, Gasem, and Salam, they also import cement. Where does this cement?
Salam doesn't manufacture?
No. There is not a single manufacturing plant in the Gambia. Let me tell you, we don't have manufacturing, and we cannot have it.
I know Jar Oil bags, but Salam, I think.
Salam doesn't.
They all bag.
They all bag.
Okay.
The best they can do is bring clinker and add some little additive and finalize it. They do not manufacture cement. I have been involved in cement manufacturing in ADB projects in countries as far as Democratic Republic of Congo, major cement manufacturing businesses. To manufacture cement, the biggest input you need.
Charles, what's wrong with the internet? Go ahead.
The biggest input you need is basically this thing, calcium carbonate. What is it called? The everyday word for it is what is the word is escaping me. But this is the biggest input you need to manufacture cement.
Yeah.
You need to have that in large quantity. But let's say you have that the query for that in, let's say, Brikama. You cannot put the factory in Kanifi because that distance alone from Brikama to Kanifi would be too large to transport, because that input is high volume, low value, and to transport it even over short distance is prohibitive. So which is why in countries where you do cement manufacturing, the factory is always located at the site of the quarry.
Okay.
So if you're going to do cement manufacturing here, you have to truck in the input it would not even be close to, it will be commercially viable just by looking at the, unviable just by looking at the design.
Okay.
So it's not possible for Gambia to have cement manufacturing because we do not have the raw material in a natural deposit here. So Jar Oil, Salam, and Gasem, they import cement that is manufactured outside. In fact, Jar Oil, the source of their cement is Spain and Portugal.
Okay.
Now, because of the distance, the large distance that they transport it, and because of the other levies they may have to pay because they are going out of the ECOWAS region, they cannot compete with cement that is coming just across the border from Senegal. They cannot compete. The only way they can compete here is that is what they have been asking the government to do, to increase the cost for their competitors, to allow them to sell more than they normally would have sold. So they started with this argument that they are manufacturing. So it is completely not true. Let me give an example also what is not manufacturing. Usually when they are bringing vegetable oil or palm oil, it would come in a big plastic container inside, plastic sheet inside a big container, 40 foot or 20 foot. It's just put there and the oil is pumped into it. And when you arrive at your destination like Gambia, it's put in smaller barrels.
And put a label on it.
Do we talk about vegetable manufacturing here when that is being done at a warehouse in Banjul?
No.
No. It's simply rebagging. If a shopkeeper is buying a bag of sugar and taking it to their shop and putting it in one cup bags and selling it, do we call that sugar manufacturing?
No.
No. The sugar is manufactured outside, probably Brazil. It comes here and it is rebagged in quantities that consumers can buy. Packaging and bagging is not the same as manufacturing. When you are, when you are going to do cement manufacturing, you need certain things that are in place. You need a huge manufacturing operation. Sometimes it is so big that it needs to have its own power plant. And believe me, if it is anywhere in the greater Banjul area, we would all know because the location, nobody would have to point it out to you.
No.
So we do not have cement manufacturing. Anyone who has gone to a cement manufacturing plant will tell you, if there is one in the Gambia, you will not miss it. Nobody will tell you. You will know about it. So here is the fact, there is no cement manufacturing.
Okay.
So recently, Mr. Haidara of Jar Oil has been going around making claims that they should be protected because they bring more tax revenue for the government. Again, this is false. Jar Oil has special investment certificate, which makes them, basically not pay many taxes anyway. These small-scale importers that are bringing cement from Senegal, these cement trucks, they cannot go through informal routes. They have to come through the main crossing.
Yeah.
And when they cross, they pay tax.
Yeah.
And besides, even if it's true that Jar Oil is actually bringing more tax revenue than this, that should not be a basis for government favoring one set of business over another. What is important, what we must realize is one of the biggest sectors in the Gambia is industry, and this is a sector we want to expand. Within this sector, the biggest subsector there is construction. Within construction, the most important input is cement, whether it's for private real estate or for government infrastructure like roads or schools or hospitals. When you think about the infrastructure deficit that we have and the importance of infrastructure for the country, the last thing you want to do is increase the cost of that import. In some countries, in fact, that are thinking long term, they have a price ceiling for cement.
Yeah. Senegal
does actually, because they know the value of something like cement, how important it is for infrastructure. You do not want that price to go up, because what it will cost you in development will be far more than any short-term revenue you will get today. So this argument that Jar Oil is pushing now, that they are bringing more tax revenue, it's completely meritless. So it is not an issue of the Gambia government stepping in, protecting Gambian businesses. No. Here you have Jar Oil on one hand that is being protected, and the real victims here are Gambian consumers. Some producers, but the real victims are Gambian consumers. Yeah. You mentioned your building, the cost of...
I bought a cement bag for $450 yesterday.
Same thing.
Last week I bought it for $390.
I'm currently going through a construction project in URR. We had a delay in tiling. Why? Because we couldn't get cement. 2 days ago, I was speaking to somebody who is in charge of a cattle water project in a village just between Wasu and the Gambian border. It's a remote village where the cattle don't have water to drink, and they are trying to construct a reservoir for them. Because at this point, now all those ponds outside have dried up.
Yeah.
The project was delayed at that point in time because they couldn't find cement. So let me get to the final point to address this issue that was talked about in the press conference. See, in 2018, when this issue came up, there was actually a study by this Gambia Competitiveness Commission that looked at the capacity of these three importers to satisfy demand, and they found that it couldn't exceed 60%. I know what is involved if a government has to assess demand. The study you have to do across the whole country to assess demand and to assess the capacity of three suppliers to meet that demand. And I know for a fact that this short time period was not sufficient time for the government to actually do a proper analysis to find out whether or not the capacities of Jar Oil, Gasem, and Salam can meet the demand in the country. It's simply not possible. What they said in the press conference is completely false. There was no way they could have done a study at that time, and there's no agency in the country they can point to that did that study. And only one agency can do that. It's headquartered in Kotu. You can verify it with them whether they've done that study. It hasn't been done. So the statement read by the Minister of Information from the Ministry of Industry is full of falsehoods. Apart from the fact that they listed the word factory multiple times, we don't have a single factory. And the fact of the matter is the capacity. If it is true that the capacity of these three big bulk exporters can meet the demand, we wouldn't have had the hike in prices, we wouldn't have had the shortage that we experience. And also, do you think all the people who are importing cement, these small-scale importers, do you think they are idiots? They are spending their own money, bringing these trucks, and the reason these trucks are able to go back and forth, deliver, return, and bring it is because the cement they are bringing in is meeting demand.
Yeah.
If Jar Oil and others were producing already what is sufficient, cement price, and these people went into Senegal and kept bringing more than what was needed, the prices would have collapsed and their cement businesses would have completely gone out of business. Has that happened? It hasn't.
No.
The fact of the matter is the government is not really being truthful. They are actually going to, the fact of the matter is they are trying to protect one company, and on the other side you have small-scale Gambian importers and Gambian consumers. So it's not Gambian manufacturers versus Senegalese businesses.
Most of these people are Gambians, the ones that are bringing, some of them are Gambians.
No, of course, all of those small-scale are Gambians.
Okay.
So it's basically you are taking one Gambian individual, prioritizing his interest over the interest of the vast majority of consumers. Now, the question we should ask ourselves
why
now,
is that?
Why is that?
Why is that?
To me, at the root of it is just basically corruption. But we can go to the proximate issue here. We all know that it's a fact that Jar Oil took a loan from Badia, which was guaranteed by the government. And there are rumors that they are having problem really addressing that loan. Now, the government, unfortunately, made a sovereign guarantee on that loan. First of all, this is wrong. Right now, we have a debt problem. Why is the government guaranteeing a loan from a private company? We know that one of the reasons why we have a lot of loans is government guaranteeing loans from parastatals and state-owned enterprises. At least those are state-owned. At least you can make a case that they are doing public, they are undertaking public goods, or they are owned by the state, and therefore maybe a case could be made that those are, the state could take a guarantee. But what is the government doing guaranteeing a private business? If Jar Oil cannot guarantee a loan on its own, then let it go and take loans it can handle. It's not the responsibility of the Gambian government to guarantee a loan. If Jar Oil is not able to service that loan, it will be added to the debt we already have. Does Jar Oil share his profit with the nation? I have we should support all the businesses we have. We want to have a strong private sector, but things must be done according to law in a proper way. So right now, I suspect the reason the government is bending itself backward, the reason it's going to all of this effort to try to help Jar Oil, even though at the expense of the whole country, is they are just trying their best to make sure that that loan can be repaid. But why do we have to put ourselves in that position in the first place? This is where mismanagement of resources, corruption comes into play. This government, it has failed in its responsibility to the nation, and now we are paying the price.
That is really serious, Dr. Gajigo, because I don't know. I don't have any explanation to that. But number one, I know that there was this talk about this loan that Oil was given from Badia, right?
Yes.
But the fact that it was guaranteed.
Something guaranteed.
It was guaranteed by
Gambia government.
So which means if Oil has any problem paying back, it is the taxpayers, you and I, the poor people of the Gambia, without existing debt, who have to pay back that loan, because that's what the guarantor is. So when they were giving out that loan, they will not even look at the balance sheet of Oil, because now they'll just say, it's a government guarantee. It doesn't matter. Even if this government collapses tomorrow, we will be paid by the Gambia government. Why should we do that? What is the justification for the Gambia government guaranteeing? I mean, they should not even guarantee some of these loans from parastatals, because these are the source of our biggest debt burden. And now you are adding to that debt burden by guaranteeing loans. And Oil is not the only one. They've guaranteed this for other companies that are importing rice. This is happening all the time, and these things are not even announced to the public.
No.
The same government will talk about, what's the Minister of Finance name? CD Kerr will talk about our debt service, this and this and this. The next moment, they are all signing off on these guarantees. They are not doing their job. None of them are serious. This government is full of people in cabinet who are incompetent, who have who doesn't have the interest of the government at heart, as long as their pockets are full.
Oh, that is serious. Now, you said something, and that is also very important. The consumers, the biggest the people that are suffering now is us, the consumers,
yes,
and those small-scale businesses. Now, Oil is telling us that they have not increased a dime to the cement that they are selling. It is the same price that they have been selling to these suppliers that they're still selling. Now, if anybody is increasing the price, it's not Oil. It is the shopkeeper or that guy who is buying it from Oil. And now cement has gone from 390 to 450. Is that government's problem? For example, if Oil is still selling it at the same price though, at their depot, they're selling it at the same price that they have been selling some months back. Why is the increase now? Why?
Well, I mean, first of all, if the misintervention of the government hadn't taken place, I'm not sure that's a word itself, but if this badly motivated intervention of the government hadn't taken place, there wouldn't be any shortage created. Now, the thing with getting an artificial monopoly is you don't even need to increase your price. Because you have the monopoly, you are selling higher volume than before, you can even make more profit by selling less. Yeah. So the argument here is like basically laughing at people, basically saying we are not increasing the price. You don't need to increase the price. The government intervention created artificial shortage. That price increase, it's a direct consequence of that action. But it doesn't matter whether you yourself, a wholesaler, has increased the price, because you have some outlets that sell on retail, you benefit from that as well. But on top of the fact that because you are grabbing a bigger share of the market, your profit and your gains through that intervention by the government have increased multiple fold, whether or not you are selling at the same wholesale price or not.
Mari is saying few years back they took millions from our national reserve to give to undisclosed businesses to import essential goods.
That's a lot also for rice, vegetable oil.
Yes.
In fact,
I mean, there are a lot of things that are not coming out. Even this information was not published. I mean, you would think that the government has a responsibility to let the public know.
The bank guarantee.
A sovereign guarantee has been made to a private company and justify that. That needed to be justified. What is so essential about Oil getting a loan that is guaranteed by the government? Why don't they take a loan that they can guarantee based on their own balance sheet, based on their own collateral, their own assets? He has many financial business assets here. If those things are not sufficient, then limit yourself with loans that you can handle. Why shift that burden to the people? And then you are going around making yourself the victim here, and the government is creating a whole fiction about their intervention when none of that is true.
Yes,
Mustapha, this reminds me of the Banjul project when the entire ministry came and defended the contractor.
They create fake scenarios
and issue the state
and react to it.
And this is what we have seen. They're defending their position of increasing. Mustapha, but you and I spoke about how our agreements with Senegal has always disadvantaged us. And at this point, sometimes I look at it from that angle, even though Dr. Gajigo and Dr. Mane will not agree with me, I look at it from that. If, for example, Senegal, they are saying, wouldn't allow anything from Gambia to enter their country. The minister said, Ahmad Ba said yesterday that almost 38 products that the president had told President Jomai, we have 38 products that we want to send to your country, but they are not allowed. But anything that Senegal wants to bring here, that's not a fair trade deal, Mustapha. That's not a fair.
That's true. That's not fair.
And even when you look at our transport sector, we have talked about it. All of this. You can find in Senegal, bosi sabantol a day, bosi sabal it's all unlimited. All of those things.
But the question
if they are initiating, they want to have they want to have this new government on the table. Somebody was telling me somebody from that government said, "Yen mom, dengan har ba ñun suñ nguur bu es bi ñew rek ngena indi sen benke ñenke di ay suñ simen mané ko no dañ wara ñew ci table ñu waxtaan." This is from somebody from that government who said that to me, but I am of a belief that we should go back to the negotiating table with Senegal when it comes to trade policies, and this including it should be included in that. Yes, I disagree with the increase.
That's true, but so I guess the question now is we should avoid a confusion. A confusion in the sense that, is that the subject here? Or are we talking about a different issue? The issue of trade policy, you're talking about disadvantaged trade policy, Senegal flooding our market with their goods and us not being here. That's a whole matter. That's a whole different kettle of fish together.
Yeah.
That's a subject we've talked about a long time ago, all the issues that are coming from Senegal. But this one, now the question now is then, why is government concern picked up only one issue and took that as a trade war with Senegal? Why is only the cement the issue we are talking about here? There are a lot of issues. So why are they not blocking other things from coming in? Why cement?
Why cement?
So cement is not part of that trade war. They don't care about other things. The thing is, they selected one thing that is of relevance to them and made that a national issue. For people who are concerned about trade imbalances, they would have gone to the trade board and have a whole holistic discussion with Senegal on all issues. But they wouldn't have just picked on one hand. And like Dr. Gajigo said, I mean, they don't have an argument, because even if you are looking at it from an economic point of view and you said, oh, they are paying a lot of taxes to the state. But also now, if somebody is giving you $500 and it's taking different amounts of different dollars, 500 with the right hand, and it's taking different amounts of varying degree with the left, that person, you should be concerned much about what he's taking than what he's giving. So if Yao Oil is paying a lot of taxes, yeah, let's suppose he's paying a lot of taxes.
Yeah.
But now you have a policy which is also incredibly having impact on local people, and it's taking more money than necessary from the pockets of the individuals.
Yeah.
Then you have to weigh the two sides. This is affecting the construction industry, yeah, which is big. This is affecting individuals. Including your public servants you are paying with low wages. Some of them are struggling building their houses. So each person, you give them money, and now you have a policy which is taking more money than ordinarily necessary from their pockets. And you have individuals who are also going into these businesses. And look at, you talk about employment, for example. Even if you look at it from employment point of view, even these individuals who are bringing cement from Senegal, they also have a whole chain that benefits from their, like whether it's truck drivers, whether it's people in their retail shops. So they also have a chain of people who are benefiting from it. Now the only argument left now is nationalism. Senegal, Gambia.
Yeah.
This is coming from Senegal, this one is coming from another country. But because both of them are coming from other countries.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so now if you are saying, oh, let's protect the I don't know what a local industry is within this context. Because there is no cement local industry. Both of them are bringing cement from elsewhere.
Yes.
And both of them to a varying degree have people they employ. And both of them are paying tax. And now, but all this current policy, yes, tax is being paid, but have an implication that is also taking money from the people, from the pockets of the people. So it has more adverse economic consequences than the other one. So which one would you ordinarily take? Which one would a sensible person take?
But Minister also raised something that is very important. He said, apart from the fact that their investigations revealed that 95% of these people are not Gambians, so the money doesn't stay in our country.
95% of which people?
The people that bring in the cement from Senegal, he said 95 of them are not Gambians, 95% are not Gambians, meaning only 5% are Gambians. Apart from the fact that these three industries employ a lot of Gambians, they pay a lot of taxes. He's also saying that one of the reasons why they're doing it is to stop using Gambia as a dumping ground. The CFA is climbing to the level that is unsustainable for Gambian business. We know that most of our livestock and others come from the border. So these are things that they are trying to mitigate.
To stop that also?
They're trying to mitigate the CFA climbing.
Let me give you
money is going.
The CFA is pegged to the euro, right? The CFA is pegged to the euro.
Yeah.
Now the cement is not coming from Senegal. It's coming from where? Portugal and Spain.
Yeah.
What currency do they use?
Euro and
they use the euro.
Yeah.
Only euro.
Yeah.
So if your argument is about the rising value of CFA, which is pegged to that currency euro, that's the alternative source. How is that argument going to be? I mean, how is that effect that you are supposedly fighting against going to be mitigated by shifting all of your imports from Senegal to Portugal and Europe? It makes no sense. And the argument that these, most of these 95% are not Gambian, that's false. There is actually an association of Gambian cement importers. Yes. I worked with them in 2018. Some of their communication with the government, they've seen my article, they saw my article at the time and had some discussions with me. Even now, some of them have approached me trying to bring their grievances because they feel like they have not, the doors to them have completely, to the government have been closed because the government is completely in the pocket of Jar Oil. So it is not true that 95%, it is not true. When these trucks come, they go straight to Gambian businesses. One of them is a man, actually, I had the privilege of meeting in 2019. I went to his shop in Farafenni. There was an article in The Voice, actually, about this guy. These are real Gambians. Some of them, the only thing they own is the single store that they are working in. So the fact of the Gambia government is engaging in something that is very dangerous. It is spreading false information. It is actually demeaning and degrading other Gambian businesses who are small scale, who actually are the people who deserve the help. In any country, if you want to be progressive, when we say progressive taxes, it means increasing the burden on those who can afford it and reducing the burden on those who cannot. The government's intervention, if to the extent that it was necessary here, should have been to assist small scale businesses. So what they are doing here is completely against all the things they say about helping MSMEs when they are writing policy documents. Every other cement importer in the Gambia, these small scale ones that are coming from Senegal, they are all smaller than Jar Oil. If anyone needed help, it is them. So the vast majority of these shop owners are Gambians. They even have an association.
Yes.
And they are actually trying their best to meet the government to bring their concerns to them. But the government has not been open to them. So it is not true that these are not Gambians.
The minister said they have met with them and there's hopefully very soon there will be a very good outcome to the meeting, which will be very favorable to the government and also the importers.
So if Senegal is flooding our economy with goods, like shouldn't that be a broad policy that addresses an issue of that nature, or should that just be shouldn't just be dealing with cement.
Exactly.
They said they're going to have a meeting. The president and Jomai, when they spoke, it had resulted to having the trade minister and Senegal's trade minister meeting. So they're going to be a joint ministerial meeting that will look at our trade policies. And
Fatou,
at least they have
the bottom line is, like Gajigo has said, people who are not doing anything keep pretending to be doing something.
You think they're not doing anything?
No. The problem is that Senegal is not necessarily flooding our market because there is none we are producing here.
Yes.
You see what
I'm
I mean?
about 38 products.
But
so
those 38 products.
Yeah,
now,
I know water, but I don't know what else.
Where are the alternative industries in the Gambia to satisfy the Gambia market? If Senegal is bringing it, if there is a Gambian market that is sufficient enough to produce those things, they wouldn't have been coming. We could stop it. But if you stop what Senegal is bringing, and you don't have an alternative market for it locally, it's going to create a problem still. So for example, we have poultry farmers in the Gambia. You have poultry products being produced, but is it sufficient? That's the question. The second question, we have people who are growing onions and other vegetable products. Do we have enough of it locally? Here, even shrimps, a lot of it comes from Kafunti.
Yeah.
Shrimps in Gambian restaurants, a lot of it comes from Kafunti. So before you can go into a trade war, you better be in a better position to feed your people.
Yeah. And also, there should have been a discussion of what these things were before we start hearing about it in the cement. It's like the discussion of even meeting Jomai came on the heels of their intervention.
Yeah.
If we actually heard about a good faith effort by the government to discuss, and there was like no outcome or progress, and then therefore as a result they resorted.
For me, it's the jump, doctor, from what, 30 per bag to 180.
No, the goal that this is
like ridiculous.
But also the other question is why now?
Why now?
Why now? Because this is something that's been ongoing for a long time.
For a long time.
So why now?
And the reason is that right now, because of this loan that Jah Oil has to pay back, and from my understanding, it is not quite clear that it is going to be serviced on time, that now there is this effort to try to give that company a monopoly so that cars can be generated very quickly.
I wouldn't know, but that is likely, because this whole issue of monopoly you are talking about, if you read the Senegalo-Gambia joint communique, the one that they just signed,
when Jomai came,
No, the last one before that.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. If you read it,
when Macky Sall came,
they were talking about basic things such as Senegal not allowing cashew nuts. Most of the folks who are into timber export, they also bring in cashew, and they bring in cashew mostly from Guinea-Bissau. And so when they bring in cashew, they are naturally allowed to pass through Senegal, Casamance. A lot of them, they stop them. They don't allow them to pass. So most of the time, they only allow them to take it up to Zigansor and put it on boats, which is very expensive, and bring it by sea to the Gambia. Very expensive. And the cashew guys who have always complained, there is a lot of trade issues between Gambia and Senegal. That's been ongoing for a long time.
Right.
And they've never put their foot on the ground and negotiate these things. And so also...
That's why this is the right time. This is a new government.
The point is...
Try to provoke it, have a conversation.
The question
this is a new government that is coming in Senegal.
But there are, Gambia and Senegal's issue, Fatou, we have a lot of imbalances. We have border issues that are not discussed and fixed. We have the issue of the military. Senegal is protecting us. Senegal is guarding the Gambian presidency. We couldn't even trust our own soldiers to do it.
Yeah.
That's an issue we've not resolved.
Yeah.
Senegal it's not just... Senegalese are the ones fishing in Gambian waters.
Yeah. Go to Gunjur today. The people, all the fishermen you will meet right now in Gunjur, fishermen from Senegal, because right now this is the time of the year where fishing in all of West African sub-region from Guinea to Mauritania, there's a limited, there's a limit put on fishing there. so that you can allow the fish to spawn and the population can regenerate. The one country that doesn't try to do any effort on that is Gambia. So all the fishermen right now, if you go to Gunjur, you'll find a lot of fishermen there who are fishing. Not because we are, we care about supplying fish to the to our people, but simply because our government doesn't care about issues like long-term, that is good for long-term fisheries development or long-term trade policies. Because if you overfish today, tomorrow you're not going to have a lot of fish. So if you think long-term, those policies that other countries are implementing, it is your duty to do it. So, I mean, going back to your point, if, as Mustapha has said, if there are imbalances, address them in a proper way. But picking cement is the worst example, because in that process, the actual people being harmed are your poor people, your customers. Not Senegal is not being harmed.
Yes, absolutely.
Because Darboe itself is sending trucks to Senegal.
Yes, they brought it.
They are sending trucks to Senegal to get it. So if it's the issue of trade here, then why are you blocking the small scalers? But Darboe's vehicle still go to collect cement and bring in, and they are not being stopped.
But they are paying the same price. They said they wanted to show these people, they wanted to, ascertain that they can also do it, but they will pay the right price.
No, because the reason they're able to do that, because now they have the monopoly. The excess profit that they generated from the artificially created monopoly enabled them to do that. And they know they don't have to do that much. Yeah. Because the monopoly
Senegal
that they
is
have.
not losing here.
Senegal is not losing a single button. This is like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. There are goods that you could use to press home the fact that we need to have equitable trade policy or benefits. Cement is not one of them.
Wow.
If we had a cement industry and we also needed export to Senegal, and Senegal is blocking our cement export, we can say, okay, if you don't allow our Gambian cement to go to Senegal, we'll block your Senegalese cement. That would make sense. But that's not the situation here.
And in fact, protectionist policies, anywhere I have seen them, is to say that we have a local economy that has the capacity to satisfy the demand, and so we are protecting that local, protecting that industry. It's not like saying in a situation where we are protecting one importer against another importer. I've never seen that. There's never been. That's
so basically, you say we are
something else.
It's not protectionism.
No.
It's like we Gambia, a poor country, we are going to protect imports from Portugal and Spain against our neighbor.
Yes.
Who can actually find more painful ways at hurting us? Yes. For what purpose?
Yes.
So
there has to be a reason other than what they are saying. And I think that maybe what Dr. Gajigo said is the
now. Before we go, it's the rainy season. Summer started URR. You have warned us. You don't think the government is ready. I saw the other day I shared a video of Senegal transporting fertilizer to the farmers, and this government, Senegalese government, when they came, they have reduced the fertilizer 52%. They were selling it for 33,000 CFA, now to 12,000 CFA per bag. They want to make it affordable and it's accessible. I have seen trucks. I had to share and said, meanwhile in Senegal, they're busy distributing fertilizer. But you said, the government, the minister, I remember Fati interviewed him some time ago, how they are preparing, and they have also said they have reduced the price of fertilizer. The president said it when he was in the Meet the People store. But you said, we are not ready. And you're predicting another failure.
Yeah.
Even though we have not gotten into the rainy season. Why?
So failure in policy implementation. Yeah, basically, if you are going to give inputs to farmers, by now, every farmer is, has pretty much decided whether they are going to grow in their plot of land, in a given plot of land, whether they are going to grow rice, maize, or groundnut. Sometimes we have these inputs reaching farmers in August. The time, just like Senegal already has been seen to be doing, the time to distribute these inputs. You just don't go and buy these inputs. First of all, you have to do some sort of a needs assessment. What is the demand here that's needed? You never hear anything about the government saying, we've done this need assessment. This is the quantity of fertilizer needed for these particular crops. And therefore, we've supplied this. Or We know that X is needed, but we are producing less than that amount due to this constraint. And somehow we will find out a way of addressing this gap later this year or in subsequent years. You don't see anything of the sort. All you hear is that government has supplied fertilizer. We are selling it at this price. How it is actually distributed, at what point it reaches in the far corners of the country, no explanation, no discussion whatsoever.
Yeah.
The government also doesn't have it would make pronouncements that it has no way of fulfilling. Last year, it made this proclamation that it was going to buy groundnut from everyone. In fact, they said if you sell your groundnut to anyone other than the government, you will face the consequences. Like if you sell it to Senegal.
Yeah.
What ended up happening? Some farmers around Badibu waited for months to get their payment.
Yeah.
So these are farmers that planted their groundnut in June, worked for 6 months, then taking it to these circles, expecting to be paid and not getting any payment. The thing is, so you can predict these things because they happen with regularity each and every single year. The government, doesn't have our staple is rice. We produce a lot of rice. I mean, we consume a lot of rice, but we only produce about 10% of that. 90% is imported. Now, if you really have a vision or a strategy in agriculture, you should communicate to the Gambian people, along metrics by which you can be held accountable. How you are going to go about basically this huge gap. You are going to start cutting into it. What is the government's target in terms of increase in production? Or if you are not going to increase the area that's been cultivated, what is going to be the government's improvement in yield? Because let me tell you, right now, our yield in rice, how much we get per hectare, is the lowest in ECOWAS. We are the worst rice producers here. Not because Gambian farmers are lazy or bad farmers, but because the policies that need to complement the farmers to be productive are absent. Irrigation. Our irrigation facilities are even getting worse over time. Jahali Pachar project in the 80s, when it was financed by ADB, used to enable farmers to cultivate in the dry season and in the rainy season. Today you go to Jahali Pachar. In Jahali, in the village of Jahali, they can only cultivate rice during the dry season because the levees and the dams that were there to control the flow of water have not been maintained, have completely collapsed. So the water becomes too high for rice to be cultivated. So in the rainy season, this prime area for rice cultivation, there is zero rice cultivation in the rainy season. When you look at the budget line that is talking about major irrigation over the past couple of years, since this borough, it's always 0, 0, 0, 0. The only little investments you see in irrigations are through the small projects that are funded by IFAD, African Development Bank, World Bank. But in terms of real government investments for the agricultural sector, it's not there because the budget for the agricultural sector is vast, is all about recurrent expenditures, nothing on development. The few agricultural extension workers we have there are not enough to provide the technical advice to farmers. The seeds do not arrive on time. The fertilizers are not adapted to the crops. You bring the same kind of NPK. That NPK is not the same NPK is not optimal for groundnut. It's not. You cannot have the same NPK that's optimal for groundnut, for cereal, for rice. It doesn't work that way. If you are going to grow, let's say maize, for instance, what maize needs is what's called basal dressing. You need to add a phosphate fertilizer, and when it reaches a certain height, you add urea. So and there are ways to get this fertilizer. It's not as if they are in distant countries. You can get phosphate fertilizer from, the biggest producer in the world is OCP. It's a state-owned company in Morocco. The fact of the matter is the government always brings the same kind of fertilizer, and there is no education on TV or sensitization across the country to tell farmers how to actually apply the fertilizer, the timing of application, the quantity of application. So it's just given, the prices announced, So the little fertilizer that actually arrives and that is used by farmers is not put to the best use. So we have the lowest yield in rice, not because we have lazy farmers. They are very hardworking. But because the part the government has to do, that is very easy to do, they don't do it. And it is the same issue year after year. No target is talked about in terms of what we are targeting in yield. Like Senegal, I mean, they can get like 4 tons per hectare. Yeah. Gambia, we get less than 1 ton per hectare. Given the amount of land we devote to rice cultivation, yes. If we have Senegal's level of productivity, we will cut our our rice import by more than half. By more than half. That just shows what can be done by just the slightest amount of effort if we have a government that knows what it is doing in agriculture, but we don't have it. So what happened last year will be a perfect replication of what has happened this year. Now, you remember like a few days ago, World Bank released a statement.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
World Bank, exciting news for the Gambia.
Not exciting.
They said that's what I saw from the World Bank Africa page. Exciting news from the Gambia.
Yeah.
The Gambia's GDP grew by 5.3% in 2023 from 4.9% in 2022. Mm-hmm. This boost comes from the strong performance in agriculture, mm-hmm. thanks to better rains, mm-hmm. improved farming methods, mm-hmm. and increased investment. Mm-hmm. For the country to keep this momentum, its latest economic update recommends a shift from low-value tourism to a dynamic private sector. Key areas for improvement include stabilizing fiscal and debt management, boosting revenue collection, investing in infrastructure, strengthening regional trade. And download the entire report. Yeah. The report is underneath.
Yeah, and I read the entire report.
Yeah, well, we were celebrating.
No. As I told you before on this program, these institutions have to write their statements in a certain way. Mm. They cannot go and point to the problems. You have to read between the lines or what actually hasn't been said. So let's look at the statement. It says the growth is driven by good rains and improved farming practices.
Yes.
So if you read the report, it will actually show to you what are the contributors of the growth. Yeah. You have our 3 sectors. We have primary sector, which is agriculture, we have industries, and we have services. All the growth came from agriculture. Negative growth came from industries. There was only tiny from services. Mm-hmm. Now, agriculture, the main thing driving it is that there was no rainfall failure. Now think about it. When we talk about agricultural sector, what needs to increase yield to go up is, we talked about all of the things the government can do. But since we are a rainfall dependent agriculture and we have farmers who are hard workers, as long as there is no rainfall failure, the farmers just doing their part is enough to keep the agricultural sector afloat. But that is only keeping things at the status quo level. So, but think about it. Of all of the inputs that can go in agriculture, the part that they mentioned that is leading to the strong output is the one sector that the government has no control over, because the government has no control over the rain.
Yes.
They didn't talk about improved irrigation. They talk about, they said improved farming practice, but I can tell you all of that is coming from the private sector. Some of these companies now in CRR that are investing in agriculture. And you have now a lot of young agribusiness companies coming online. Yeah. But they didn't mention anything about what traditionally you would expect the government to do in terms of like what it is positioned and traditionally expected to do, like investments in irrigation, educating farmers on how to use these inputs, distributing them fairly and widely across, and timely delivery of them, making sure that what they actually produce is marketed at very fair prices and they receive their payment well on time. That is not said. And when they talk about what is needed for the government,
key areas of improvement.
Stabilizing
physical debt.
Exactly.
Stabilizing physical and debt management. Yes. Boosting revenue collection. Yes. Investing in infrastructure, strengthening regional trade.
Yes. So again, all of these points, these issues we just talked about a few minutes ago, basically what the World Bank is saying we need to do, we are actually doing the opposite. You know, basically this putting these very punitive taxes on cement that is coming. Yeah. It is basically killing regional trade. Number 2, the sector that actually experienced the worst growth in our economy is the industrial sector. And the biggest, in that report, they actually specified the biggest subsector in that industry is construction. And the most important input in construction is cement. And here again, we have seen the government, rather than doing the complete opposite, reducing the cost of that input, they're actually making it worse. So if you read this report very carefully, it is these institutions have to no matter how bad they get. Yeah, I mean no, they have to always leave a window. Yeah. The political institutions, Gambians are board members, but also no matter how bad the government is, they need to keep engagement there. So they cannot close the window of engagement by using a blunt language. You know, even if you are like, let's say, during Charles Taylor's time or Bokassa in South African Republic.
No, even Jammeh's time.
Jammeh's time, you engage.
When you hear them say, you're like, okay.
Yeah. But
they've always been talking about growth.
Yeah.
To a point, you are angry with economy. You don't know what they even mean by growth.
And my thing is, Mustapha, and I've said this all the time, you can tell us, Siddiqui can tell us all he wants that we're doing well. If I am not doing well individually, my neighbor is not doing well, and I'm buying bag of rice the same price, and it's only increasing, it's not going down. Like cement is going up, it's not going down.
Then
how are we doing well?
How is an economy that is doing well only produce much more poverty now than it did 5 years ago?
Yeah. And the other thing also is this 5 point, the World Bank report, if you look carefully.
Ukraine and all this.
No, they actually mentioned there that that 5.3 is GDP growth. Now, what matters is per capita growth, the income per person. By that percentage, the Gambia actually grew by 2.7%.
Per capita?
Yeah, per capita. But again, that is a very bad level of growth. You know why? I can give you a few indicators. Gambia right now is a low-income country. We are not even a lower middle income. We are low income. That means our GDP per capita, our gross national income per capita is less than $1,000 per year. Now, if this growth rate this year per capita, if we grow like that for the next 25 years, a whole generation, we will still not be lower middle income. We will still be a low-income country if we grow at a rate of 2.7%. Now tell me, 25 years from now, a whole generation from now, we are still a low-income country. Is that something to celebrate?
No.
It's not. The other thing is, this is not unexpected. The IMF team came last year. Their projection for what they expect the Gambia to grow was actually higher than this, was 5.6%. Now we actually came to 5.3%. We didn't beat expectations. So, when you look at this and you see government try to tout, if the government try to tout this as success, you wonder what are their standards of success.
Yeah.
They don't have any standards of success.
And you know, something that's always been bothering me, me, is that since independence, this has been the standard. You know, IMF comes, World Bank comes, they do this, they praise us, we praise each other, we go.
Yeah.
Even when you have Jawara ministers talk to you, they tell you, did you know about ERP, Economic Recovery Program? Yes. Yeah, you remember, we came World Bank, in fact, they said Gambia should be a model. Yes. This is the country we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the governments always use this kind of excuses, this kind of political language from IMF, World Bank, and all these things. But the bottom line is, Fatou, not much has changed in the Gambia from independence to now. We do not have policies that are realistic, that are very complex, that seeks to address issue over long term. We don't have that. Like, for example, if you go to, in other countries, like, for example, US and others, they even announce how many jobs they will create.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And every month
this is not based on just wish list.
Yeah. Even every month, yes, they tell us how many jobs have been created in November, October, yes.
This is not based on a wish list. This is based on tangible
numbers.
Yes. So in the Gambia, for example, if you look at our budget, we've been budgeting the same way since independence.
Yes.
And this is a template.
It's a template.
They just go every year and they fix the
and
numbers.
Change it,
And fix the numbers.
Yep.
Now, if you look at our policies, agriculture has largely been driven by donor funding.
Yeah.
There is no domestic agricultural policy that sits down and says, let's rationalize, even for the sake of it. Rice cultivation. This is the amount of tons we cultivate in the Gambia. This is the number of land available to cultivate. And this land, this is the number of investment we need to put yearly, to create this number of investment yearly, to create this number of products produced yearly. And this is the number, we can produce 200,000 tons in 10 years. and these are the institutions that are going to be in charge of that production. So that you don't also have rice in country made, but people cannot afford it. I have a peculiar, different ideas about it, but government needs to sit down and think about this in a tangible way. It's not like all this high sounding NDP green, NDP this, green revolution. These are now big languages.
So NDP, do we have now?
Yiriwa something.
Yeah,
it's a document that's not even worth reading and wasting one's time on it. It's just like the previous one where every sector is a priority. If everything is a priority, what is a is there anything prioritized?
Finally, I wanted to go, but I have to talk this. The Ministry of Health, the scandal Mimbiji. I mean, the board chair coming out saying all of these things about the CMD, Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jain, and then now there's an investigation that is taking place at the hospital, and the chief medical director has been removed. The deputy CMD is administratively with the finance director. All of them, we have a new CMD. But my thing is, the Minister of Health, Dr. Samate, I have so much respect for him. But when I watched Samate at I think it was one of the meetings where they were opening a hospital, and he was throwing jabs at his own board chair, saying, like somebody is supposed to be a technocrat,
Like which board chair? The
Lamtoro guy, Sala. And he was talking about how Wofane Minuke and everything, and I'm thinking, number one, we encourage stuff like that. For somebody who is in the system, somebody was saying to me, the fact that he came out and told us this, that is the reason why this investigation is taking place in the first place. Because now my investigation not taken. Now my change so incoming the fact that he came out, I think that is commendable. That's why I don't know whether he's a whistleblower, I don't know what to call it, but I think that is encouraging for people that are in the system. You're wrong, Didi, even if they were part of the system, but now they are able to come out and tell us, something like this is happening. I think that is commendable. And I think for the minister to make that look like that was not anything relevant, but it is relevant enough to make you change management of that hospital. We have now a new medical director. The deputy medical director has been removed. And some of the allegations that are coming out, if that is true, government officials, people that are working at the hospital, having procurement monies paid directly to their personal accounts to procure stuff. If that is true, these are allegations that are coming out. If these things are true, those are serious issues that anybody cannot think of happening in a setup like that. Now, stuff like that, if you hear the chairman saying this, and then the deputy medical director coming out defending himself, even though he did not say that all of these things you're saying that happen, but he's also pointing out to things that this guy is also doing, nepotism and other stuff. Now, Dr. Gajigo, when you see stuff like that in a system, what does that tell us? But somebody said to me, why are you concerned about that? Because the minister himself have told us that there's corruption in his department and nobody did anything about that. So stuff like that, I wanted to have your take on that before we go. No,
I have not followed closely what's been happening in that ministry, but I mean, you do get a whiff of all of this. I mean, one thing for sure is you cannot have any confidence in the way the ministry is being handled. And the one who has within the sector, the one with the ultimate responsibility is Dr. Samate. Now, by all indications, I don't have the competence to judge his medical expertise, but from what I've heard, by all indications, he's an excellent doctor.
Medical doctor, yes.
But being an excellent medical doctor doesn't make you a good administrator, a good minister, a good manager. And it seems that there are far too many scandals that have been coming from that ministry, from the COVID allocation funds, these medications that are coming, and these
ambulances.
Ambulances, these different things. At some point, when is the minister going to take responsibility? You cannot be saying that just because you personally don't have a hand in it, then you are not responsible. Then you are not taking responsibility. It's your ministry, you are overseeing, you have the ultimate responsibility there. If these things happen, not once, not twice, and they're all major, you are not some bystander, you are not some insignificant public official in some corner who has no real responsibility or power. We have to, be in a position where people take responsibility. I mean, how many scandals are we going to come before we come to the conclusion that Mr. Samate or Dr. Samate, it's not discharging his job as the overall head of that sector, as the minister. He may be a good doctor. Maybe he should go back to the operating room, but he is not managing that sector the way it should be.
The way it should be, Mustapha, you think that way? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I had a back and forth with him when we were doing a story on the procurement of ambulances from Turkey.
Yes.
And some medical consumables.
Yeah.
They denied all the stories and they said it's rubbish, but apparently the ambulances are now grounded, aren't they?
Yeah, we had to hire ambulance for the OIC.
They were grounded because they were not quite ambulances.
They are broken?
Yes.
They were broken, okay.
A few months
down the line.
Yeah. I think the problem is that you can't find corruption in a country by picking up on issues, selected number of issues. Corruption has to be holistic. If you are going to fight corruption, you have to not tolerate corruption in a broad scale. And there has to be an institutional policy that exists everywhere to discourage corruption and make sure it's incentivized. But that's not the system in the Gambia. So some corruptions, when they are exposed and there's huge public outcry, then they come and do cosmetic solutions.
Yeah.
Then that's what they do. That does not help.
It doesn't help.
And that is why you are seeing every system is messed up. They know. I mean, if you take all these cameras away and you sit down with ministers,
them, yes.
They know. I mean, in fact, one time, you speak to ministers, some guys, and they will tell you, Anti-Corruption Commission, it's even difficult to find a commissioner.
Yeah.
We all know the system is messed up.
It is.
Everyone knows.
Yeah.
And so if you are going to fight corruption, you're going to be able to fight it holistically. And that's the problem at EFSTH. It's not just EFSTH, it's medical field in itself. It's a big problem there.
Yeah.
And including these private medical institutions that are all mushrooming all over the place, that are owned by people who are practitioners themselves.
Yeah.
It's
renting license.
It's government insurances that are government insurance payouts that are sustaining these private hospitals.
Yeah.
It should have stopped a long time ago. Government insurance should only pay a medical bill to the public hospital. Why would Gambian poor people take care of a medical bill that you are addressed at a private hospital? Why? The poor person cannot visit that private hospital. Why am I paying the medical bill of a public officer who goes to that private hospital? That should have stopped. Every medical insurance paid by every public institution should have only been authorized to be paid to a private.
Because we don't have the facilities in the private.
Then make it there. But Gambian poor people should not pay for a.
It's sort of what he said. It's sort of like having a scholarship scheme that is paying for people to go to a private school,
yes,
as opposed to a public school.
Yes.
You shouldn't have like a government scholarship scheme that's sending people to Marina.
Yes. Yes.
There should be, or if that's a private university, it should be UTG or some public school.
Yeah.
And that's how it's done.
Exactly. If you are paying for your private medical bill, it better be on you. That should not be on the public. Because the poor person whose money you are using to pay cannot afford to go there. These are basic moral standards that should be in institutions. Take, for example, you've ever wondered, Gambia government allocates somewhere around $2 million to procure medicine. Sometimes. I mean, when we came in 2017, they allocated $2 million, $100 million. At the time, it was around $2 million.
I think now it's more than that.
Yes. So they allocated that. You think all these private health pharmacies around, they have $2 million worth of import of medicine? No. These guys, they buy medicine from stores. The ones who are buying from America and Europe, they are buying from stores. They are not buying from pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
They are buying from stores. That is why they are complaining they cannot bring in certificates of analysis.
Okay.
Because those are issued from factories. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
They buy from stores. Come to think of it, Gambia government will spend over $2 million. And yet the medicine does not take. Do you see medicine in public? No. Where does that?
It doesn't end up at the dispensary at the.
So wherever that goes, only they know.
Yeah, it leaks.
Yes. So you go to this. And mind you, there are tons of institutions that are also donating medicine.
Yeah.
Like Global Health, they bring in different kinds of medicine. Yet government also procures. And in fact, there was a time, because I get a lot of reports, I can't do all the stories. And I have colleagues who I get to assign to do some of those stories, but sometimes it takes time.
Yeah.
Now, one time I got somebody came to me. And there was a procurement that was meant to be done. So they were fighting inside.
Yeah.
So somebody came to me and said, these guys, they wanted to allocate the procurement of medicine to these guys, and they were complaining. So there was a whole delay because there was a problem whose procurement officer we are going to allocate the procurement to. This procurement thing is big business.
It is.
Until government finds out sustainable way, probably even go out and have a particular factory that will be able to supply most of the goods, and government itself signs an agreement with that and pay directly to the factory for the factory to be able to ship it. We don't need to go all through this rubbish procurement.
Exactly.
Because it's a rip-off for the people. And the people who benefit are intermediaries, and the people who get kickbacks from under the table. I'll tell you, there was one time I was here. I was at Managan at the time, and somebody called me and he was complaining, and he said that lives were at stake. And I said, what? He said, we are supposed to procure consumables for people who are going to take dialysis.
Yeah.
And there is a war in the procurement process as to whose person is going to do it.
Yeah.
And he told me, meanwhile, people's life are at risk.
At risk, yeah.
You see, this is the kind of things that happen in this country. I mean, I get lot of words coming, but sometimes you can't do all.
You don't have the time to do.
Then again, look at also the issue of the pharmacist. The AKI happened as a result of the misadministrations of the government, of the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
The Ministry of Health knew the conflict of interest that is happening with the pharmacist. The Competition Commission did an investigation in 2021, 2022, and they told them, way before AKI, almost a year before AKI, that there is a dangerous conflict of interest in the pharmaceutical business. The same people who are doing the pharmaceutical business are the same people who are doing the regulation.
Yeah.
And the same people who are doing the regulations are the same people having basically financial interest in the whole process. And they tell them this is dangerous, it needs to stop. Not only is it anti-competition, but it's dangerous. And so they failed to do anything about it. When they acted, it was in September, after the AKI already killed children. That's when they wrote a letter to the pharmacist. And you know what? Those guys, they summoned a meeting with Barrow, the president.
Yeah.
And they got it. Until now, the same pharmacists who were supervising and regulating, they are still.
Exactly.
And you remember, there was this Tijan Jalo who went and hold a press conference and said, so far, there is no correlation between the medicine.
Yes.
Now, Tijan was the one who signed off on the medicine that was brought in.
You kidding?
Yes, Tijan was the one deputizing or representing said Kebe.
Wow.
Said did not sign off on those import permits. No, Tijan signed for said.
And it was the same guy.
And Tijan was the head of, I don't know, medical. He's the head medical analyst, medicine analyst at MCA. But those guys are still in the business. They have Marena and all those guys.
They all have license, and they give this license to pharmacy owners to be able to bring medication. The conditions of this license stipulate that you have to have a certain number of hours every day in those pharmacies. They don't even go to these pharmacies.
Because most of the same people are the same people regulating.
The regulator is the owner of the license, and they are so tight, they close these
and they make a lot of fortune because, for example, if you see what I published, what I show, I have this check that was signed for Seth Kebe. I think he's paid an average of something like $85,000 or $90,000 a month, and this is part-time. Part-time, by the way, that you don't even need to do. But more importantly, they even review the act. They change the act. They use their influence, whatever they did, and got the Parliamentary Health Committee to review the act and remove registration and make it. The registration is compulsory. Registration simply means before you bring a product in, a medical product in the Gambia, a medicine in the Gambia, you are going to bring in a batch certificate of analysis, a batch of that product so that it can be tested, and a certificate of analysis from the regulatory authority of the exporting country. And so they knew, and you are going to pay. Of course, you pay registration $300. You know. So what they didn't say is that it is for profit that killed the children. It is the desire to maximize more money, more profit. That was what killed the children. And they didn't say that. You see, because even the minister himself knew he had the import permit. He knew it was Tijan who signed it. Tijan's name was on it. And the signature was there. He knew. And the same Tijan came to be also part of their so-called causality assessment preliminary work. So they knew all these things. These people only address subjects that are in the public space, and then it causes an outrage. You know, so the system has to be ready to fight corruption, and it has to be holistically done, so that you look at all this conflict of interests, all these issues, you know, procurement of medicine, all these issues, you know, and we have to sit down.
But Mustapha, the difference from the reason why health is different from any other sector is because it has to do with lives. Look at what happened with AKI. For how long can we continue to live like this and have more people killed in the process?
Well, as long as we have a government like this. But as Mustapha said, this is, you know, you cannot just look at it at one incident or one subsector in a particular ministry. It's basically, they are all linked. Those sort of procurement irregularities that happen in the purchases of ambulances or medicine, you go to other sectors where there's agriculture, where there's you know, other infrastructure, what have you. It is happening there, you know, because the culture of you know, that not only allows these things but actually encourage them, because there's lack of accountability, emanates from the very top.
And that is what needs to be addressed, because if you don't address corruption holistically, you cannot address any of these issues. It has to be addressed. So health ministry has to look at all these loopholes and fix them. But if you don't do that, right now we are likely to have another. MCA is acting tough. I saw their fight with Innovax and all that. They pretending to be acting tough, but I mean, it's still now they still haven't addressed those conflict of interest issues.
They have to start cleaning their own backyard first before they can deal with all of these people.
Even though
because Mustapha, the truth is, if I am you are using my license at your pharmacy. There's no way I am going to regulate you the way I am going to regulate the other guy there. Now, you will get away with a lot of the things that Innovarex or any other person will not get away with.
Especially now. It's even more dangerous because now they have made registration optional. So which means now they have this thing called listing, which means you can bring in a product and you just have to pay $25 as opposed to $300. You know, registration was compulsory before, which means the drugs that kill the children, I have a difficulty pronouncing kill. I think it's not just me, it's all body. We usually said chill.
Chill.
But anyway, so if you have, if you bring in a product, now you don't have to register it. It may, if it does not come from, they said countries with, I don't know how they call it, countries with tougher regulatory authorities or whatever.
You can only list it.
They have an option of listing it.
Listing it.
Okay, so let's suppose a drug comes from Europe or US.
Yeah.
They come and tell us, even if we are a pharmacist, there are certain things we don't need anybody to go to university to know.
Yeah.
I don't need to be a pharmacist or a doctor to know. US FDA mess up, just like any other.
Just like, we all messed up.
They mess up. There are medical emergencies. I mean, they just approve vaccinations that went to harm people, and they withdrew them. This happens.
Yeah.
So the fact that you are saying this is FDA approved, it's not a license to bring it carte blanche and pour it on the population. No, it could be a defective medicine. It could be. There's a possibility. FDA is not the Lord of the Sun. They make mistakes. Now, so that is why we need to have registration in the books so that we can also test it here.
But do we have those testing equipments here?
Well, even if we don't have the testing equipment, the fact that it will be, the certificate of analysis would have been issued in a regulatory body of the exporting country.
Okay.
It gives us a layer of protection because what it means is that we shift the burden of testing to them. So for example, you know, the drafters of the MCA Act, they were conscious of the fact that we did not have a lab. You know, these people, when we are dealing with accountability, they always have something to say to make us fools. So when you said, but the children, they said, no, but you know, we don't have a lab. What are we going to do? You don't have a lab, but there is a measure in the law. Why didn't you implement that? You did not have a lab, but the law says that you have a process called regulation, a registration, which means that the medicine that is going to be imported, the importer needs to bring in a badge. And the importer needs to bring in a certificate of analysis from the regulatory body of the exporting country, which means regulatory body of India. India relies so much on drug export. They don't like to mess up because India knows when they mess up, this goes to the very foundation of the wealth of their country. So if India's drug cause to create a problem in Gambia, it does a huge PR disaster for India as the so-called pharmacy of the world. And it affects their export. So that is why India, whichever product they're going to export, and if it's going to go through the regulatory body, they make sure this product is good.
It's good.
So that it doesn't come back to them. And also it would have allowed us to hold India's regulatory body to account. And said, you said these drugs are safe for use, and now they kill our children. You see. But they refused to do it. They went for this listing, which cost $25. In fact, I spoke to one pharmacist who said, and that is why they brought listing. It's true. So it was for profit. It was to maximize profit because you didn't have to go through the complex problem of bringing in a whole batch for testing, paying the $300 and all of that. So it's convenience and maximization of profit that kill the children. And that's corruption.
And that is corruption.
And so that is why they said corruption kills. When you said,
how like it, but
yes, but this is the textbook definition.
This is a typical example.
Sometimes it kills directly, sometimes indirectly. But eventually
it kills. Gentlemen, thank you so much for this extensive, insightful conversation. It's always great to have you here, Dr. Gajigo, and of course, my Bitang. Thank you so much. I'm claiming you later for Amin. I'm claiming you as my Bitang. Thank you very much and insightful conversation. And make it today. Ita for Amin, ba for Bitang. For what for?
Let's end the conversation.
I'm on live. It was there for my life.
Okay. Policy in your court now.
But you know, but what are you going to review? Like
my problem is, Investigation upon investigation.
Yeah, but
I will make time now.
I will have other projects.
Thank you very much, Mustapha.
And they said also they are fighting. I mean, they've never missed the opportunity to say how they are fighting corruption. So the more corruption they fight, the less busy some of us are.
The less busy we will become.
And the less busy you would even have time to come here.
Who knows? The less busy we will just be spending 1 hour.
Baro is doing so well, I don't have much
time. I don't have time for all of this. And we will just spend just 1 hour on our show instead of spending 3 hours talking about all of these issues. You know, Natamaskani, I will for more light. I can't hold for Mola. What did I tell? I didn't say anything to Mola.
No, Mola for a jamfal. I saw that. But Mola,
no, Mola ain't jamfal. Mola ain't figure out. Mola ain't a problem. I ain't never mass the connive the jamfal. I'm so inside. But Mola, but
Mola found the cake catering. Mola, you shouldn't. Mola, the Mola.
Well, I tell him to jamfal to my jamfal. Mola ain't jamfal. But yes, thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you very much, Mustapha, and to the technical team and all of you watching. I see Juka, Madi, Natamas, all of you watching. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, the show will be on YouTube in the next few minutes. See you again next week. Bye-bye to you all. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
We are happy to announce the launch of our new logo. We have evolved since our incorporation in 1997, and it is time to refresh our new look to reflect who we are today. Before I reveal our new look, however, walk with me while I take you through our journey of the last 25 years. Trust Bank was incorporated on July 3rd, 1997 and began operations on October 1st, 1997. Following the collapse of the parent company of its predecessor, Meridian, the CBG stepped in and recapitalized the bank and held the shares in trust, thus the name Trust Bank. In 1999, the first investors who responded to the IPO and paid $1.50 per share received their maiden dividend of 50 bututs per share. In 2000, the bank fully paid back its investment by declaring another dividend of $1.20 bututs per share, making it a cumulative dividend per share of $1.70, which was 20 bututs above the purchase price. Between 2002 to date, share capital has increased from $27 million to $200 million, indicating that the bank has grown organically by plowing back profits to increase capital, while at the same time paying dividends to shareholders. The bank was listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange in November 2002, being the first ever cross-border listing in the sub-region. Now let's talk about awards. The bank was awarded the insignia of the National Order of the Republic of the Gambia, ORG, in the year 2010 by His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia. During the past years, the bank has received so many national and international awards. Banker Magazine, 6 times. Global Finance, 6 times. Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, 5 times. We began operations with 3 branches. Now, we have 18 branches and 20 ATMs and counting. On digital services, mobile app, check. Online banking, check. Transaction alerts, check. Watch this space. We've got more coming. Creating employment, yes, we've got that too. 400 and counting. And we take great care of our people too. Medical insurance, life insurance, private and state pensions, annual pilgrimages for both Muslims and Christians, training, yes, we do them all. One team, one family, one goal. That's the Trust Bank spirit. On corporate social responsibility, we have spent over $50 million in various causes. We care, and so we share. Over the years, we have paid over $1.6 billion to our shareholders, which translates to a whopping $20 per share and counting. Phenomenal returns for our shareholders who purchased at $1.50. Corporate taxes, over $1 billion is paid. Our journey started with a vision to create the kind of company that delivers quality services and innovative products with an inspired team dedicated to serving our customers, our environment, and our communities at large in the most caring manner. We remain fully committed to delivering excellent services to each of our stakeholders. customers, employees, shareholders, and partners. So, we remain true to who we have always been. As we look forward to greater achievements, we are rebranding to reflect who we are today and the future that we inspire. Our new logo has been designed to visually demonstrate our Gambian heritage and the sophisticated nature of the bank. We are moving away from the navy and gold-colored parallelogram-shaped logo to our baobab tree with a rising sun in the background. The striking outline of a baobab tree at sunrise is a familiar sight to anyone who has spent time in the Gambia. Our new logo and visual identity are inspired by our core values and spirit of being a pioneer in providing a unique banking experience. It is a completely new look that better matches the transformation we have made as a company. But we remain your trust bank. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor to present to you our new logo and corporate identity.